Quiet on the set.
Camera speed.
Sound production.
Roll sound.
Rolling.
Sound production. Take 2.
Welcome to the I Remember Liking That Movie podcast. Remember those childhood movies you loved? Now, we're going to watch them again and find out if they're still as amazing as you remember. Or, your father was right. You were an idiot, and everything you watched was stupid. So buckle up, movie aficionados. Over-the-top gore? Check. Over-embellished action? Check. Gratuitous nudity? Double check. Storylines so absurd you could drive a semi-truck through those plot holes. Oh yeah, some of those movies didn't even know what a movie plot was. And that's the way we liked it. Now, here's your hosts, Anna Santos and Jimmy Coates.
Okay, welcome to the I Remember Liking That Movie podcast. This week we are still continuing our drive-in, and the two movies we are watching this week are DC Cab from 1983 and Death Wish 2 from 1982. The more I did this, the more I think we might have made a big mistake setting some stuff up. And the more I do it, I don't know if I've seen Death Wish 2. Like I'm
Really?
starting to. I know I've seen Death Wish 3 multiple times and Death Wish 4 a couple times, but nothing familiar with Death Wish 2 at all.
I have never seen Death Wish 2. I can confirm this, nor have I ever seen DC Cab. So
Okay, there you
it's
go.
going to be a fun week for me.
Well, DC Cab is one of the, and I say this every time it happens, I'll probably say it every other time, is when I used to spend some summers at my grandparents down in the city, and my aunt and uncles were down there. I would borrow movies, and this was definitely one of them. And I remember it being funny. So you don't remember anything about DC Cab.
Nothing. Not a thing.
Okay, well, I remember a bit, and because Mr. T was in it, and I loved Mr. T.
Mr. T is awesome. We love Mr. T.
I love Mr. T so much. I tried so hard to convince my parents to let me get a mohawk. And they said, "No, you'll look." Well, it was like the 80s, so you can only imagine what they called me. Politically incorrect nonstop. Yeah, but they didn't let me get the mohawk. That's probably a good thing. I just remember it being silly and funny. Now, before we dive right into it, this was the first movie directed by Joel Schumacher.
Oh, really?
Right. For those who don't know who Joel Schumacher is, he's done actually quite a few things. He's done like Tigerland, Phone Booth, 8mm, A Time to Kill.
Yeah.
Batman Forever, The Client, which was good. Falling Down was one of my favorites. Flatliners.
St. Elmo's Fire.
Did he really?
Yeah, he directed St. Elmo's Fire.
He directed The Lost Boys.
He has apparently been a part of my entire childhood, and I never realized how much.
Never realized it.
You start reading his resume, and you're like, "Well, shit."
Yeah, because I'll be honest, I read that off IMDb, and I didn't realize he directed half those movies.
Well, because it's a name like.
You know the name.
Like when you know the name and you know he's done a lot of stuff and you're like, cool. We recently reviewed Batman and Robin.
Yeah. Well, he did Batman Forever, not Batman and Robin. Oh, no, he did Batman and Robin too.
Yeah.
Shame on you, Joel Schumacher.
No, it's okay. Thank you, Joel Schumacher. But like Lost Boys, St. Elmo's Fire. St. Elmo's Fire is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I have not seen that movie in so long. I would love to do that movie because it's been a minute.
I'm telling you right now, every time it's on TV, I need to watch it. Like it's
every time I hear that song.
Oh, so good. A Time to Kill was revolutionary.
Yeah, it was great.
Like Flatliners.
Oh, I remember Flatliners.
Oh God.
The Lost. Yeah, like a lot of good movies from my childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From my childhood, and also
my teens. Yeah.
He also directed the Phantom of the Opera movie.
Oh,
which was actually a really great interpretation of the Phantom of the Opera.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah. So I was like, this man has been doing a lot. So
Yeah.
I can forgive him for Batman and Robin.
Well, we might have to forgive him for this. Now, this also stars Adam Baldwin, is not related to any of the other Baldwins, but
Correct.
you'll remember him from Serenity or Firefly,
Yes.
Independence Day, The Patriot, Full Metal Jacket. Like
Wasn't
he's
he
done a
also in Chuck?
lot.
I feel like he was on Chuck.
He was in a couple episodes
Yep, he
of
did Chuck. Oh,
yeah,
he was in The Last Ship?
yeah.
I've been thinking about doing a
Oh,
rewatch of that series.
he's one of those guys that pop up and you're like, "Oh, I know that guy."
Mm-hmm.
And he did a great movie with who's the guy from Jaws? Roy Schneider.
Ah.
A movie called Conan Tate, where they're both hitmen and they were hired to kidnap and if things go wrong, kill a little boy. And it is such a good movie. It was one of those movies like you're like, oh my. He was in Next of
Yeah.
Kin with our favorite there, Patrick Swayze.
Ah, yes.
Predator 2. He's done a lot. Adam Baldwin has done a lot. And
He has. He has been working very steadily. He has had some controversial political views, which has disappointed a lot of his fans who found him through Chuck and Serenity and things like that.
I think you can have certain political views and still be. What happened like when people used to be like, I'm liberal, I'm a Republican, but you can still be neighbors. Or is this guy like a Nazi?
Well, no. He's not a Nazi. I'd like to officially go on.
Like if
but-
he's got a swastika flag flying outside in
No,
front
no,
of his
no.
home, I get it.
Thankfully, no. But this is why I say he's had some controversial, like it's a little disappointing for some of the fans. There wasn't really an uproar about it, but it was kind of people being like, "Oh,
Yeah, that's why I always say
you're gonna
don't
vote
ever
for
put
Trump?"
don't ever put too much stock in Hollywood actors and actresses and directors. Like they're good at what they do, but they might not their way
Yeah.
of like look at what's his name that ate people. And I liked The Lone Ranger, and I liked that 70. What's that 70 movies he did? He's done a few good movies. Army Hammer.
Army Hammer, yeah.
Yeah.
Who apparently has clarified he is not an actual cannibal.
Oh, okay. Well, there you
'Cause,
go.
I mean, when you have to clarify that about your life, I feel like you've already made some bad choices.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no. I think that's because the time, like back in the day, it used to be, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm a liberal, or I'm a conservative. It used to mean something different 20 years ago to what it means today.
Yeah. Everyone seems to be do or die.
Well, because I think there are a lot of like moderate voters who are like, we can take both, like conservative ideals and liberal ideals, and let's work together. But there's such a loud, extreme, like small section of each side that
Oh,
you're
yeah.
just kind of like, you're ruining it for everybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are certain things that make me a little like when I heard about Adam Baldwin, I was like, oh, I really thought you were going to be one of those crazy liberals. I was really hoping for that. I still think he's a nice man. I've heard wonderful things about people who work with him on set.
Yeah, he's supposed to be
Oh.
really cool. Well,
Yeah.
if you work with if you worked on Firefly and you worked with the star of Firefly there,
Nathan Fillion.
Nathan Fillion, and he said he was a cool guy. So if Nathan Fillion thinks you're a cool guy,
A lot. Well, I mean, we can always talk about the stuff that happened on the set of The Rookie.
oh, and Castle.
Yeah, like there have been some issues, but there's always going to be a power dynamic issue, and it's really easy to not recognize some of the fucked up dynamics when you're a good-looking white guy.
Yeah,
I know.
And I have that problem all the time.
I know you do. I know.
God.
But also Nathan Fillion played like one of the Buchanan boys on One Life to Live. So I mean, he's been working since he was like in his early 20s.
Yeah.
And maybe even earlier. So he's had a very like a 30-year long career. So he knows how to play the game. He knows how to work the system.
Yeah.
He just hasn't taken a lot of DEI kind of courses to be like, let's recognize how not to insult people, even though we don't even realize we're doing it. But Hollywood has that issue in general, whether you're conservative, liberal, a jerk or one of the greatest people ever. It's just not super diverse behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, this movie is diverse because it also has Mr. T. I love Mr. T when I was a kid.
I
I
love
really
Mr.
did.
T
Like I
too.
18.
My brother-in-law is black, and this is important for the story. He cut his hair into like a kind of faux hawk. It wasn't
Mm.
a full mohawk, but it was pretty hawking. And everybody started calling him Mr. T. And I just got into the habit of every time I saw him, I'd be like, I pity the fool every time. And he's like, can you stop that? I'm like, shave off the mohawk. But anyways,
It also has Charlie Bartnett. You probably recognize it. Like he's been in a few things. It also has our buddy Gary Busey.
Gary Busey.
Marsha Warfield, who was a comic actor. I don't know if she was a comedian, but she was the black lady on Night Court.
Yes,
Was
she
wondering.
played a bailiff.
Yeah,
I
she's done
love
more,
her.
but that's her big.
That's what she's most recognizable from. But I
Yeah.
mean, we've all seen her on many things.
Bill Maher,
That was
a very young Bill Maher.
yeah.
Paul Rodriguez, who was like the token Spanish dude for like the 80s.
Yes, he was the Latino representation for a lot of movies and TV shows in the 80s.
And he was always funny when I remember him as a kid. Whenever I saw him, and he was always and you always knew him. And
I feel like he started in stand-up. Am I?
I think yes, he did.
Yeah. But I mean, he has also had a very prolific career. Like he's a hustler.
Yeah, yeah. And the Max Gail. And if you don't know who Max Gail is, my father would watch this and we get mad because he would come into the living room, tell us to give him the remote. Actually, it probably wasn't even a remote, but he would change the channel to Barney Miller. And we'd be like, I appreciated Barney Miller when I got older. It was quite clever and it is a funny show. But as a kid, I did not like Barney Miller. And he played He played hold on, I got it here. Detective Stan Hold
on. I'm trying to find. Oh God, what was his character? I had it.
Wojo.
Yes. Jenko?
Yeah, and he's one of the more popular characters. Well, they were all pretty popular. It was a very popular show.
You know what? Actually, it was funny because once you said Barney Miller, I was like, that sounds super familiar. So then I looked at it and I was like, wait, I've seen episodes of this show.
Yeah, probably your dad.
No, actually, it wasn't my dad. In my house, we watched.
Probably just flipping around then.
Probably flipping because I watched a lot of older TV shows when I was in like younger. Like I was 8 or 9 years old and I was watching stuff from like the 70s.
Yeah.
In the early 80s.
I used to love it.
Yeah.
I used to love I loved One Day at a Time. I loved All in the Family. I loved all of it. I love sitcoms. Very like comfort food.
Well, I really liked a lot of the ridiculous TV shows like the Monkees. I grew up watching Benny Hill with my mom.
Yeah, Benny Hill was really funny.
Yeah, I thought it was
I like Benny Hill. Monty Python.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of stuff that I ended up watching, which I was way too young for. We realize this now. Back then we were like, whatever, it's on TV. It's fine. Just watch it.
There wasn't a lot to choose from. All right, so let's go. To the box office. All right. Now, the budget of $8 million, DC Cab made about $16.1 million. Back then, marketing wasn't like it is today. So this quite possibly made a profit.
This made probably a pretty decent profit because their marketing budgets back then were teeny tiny.
It was one of 9 new releases that weekend that it opened. It opened in 862 theaters at a distant 9th place. It went back and forth from 9th to 10th for 4 weeks at a peak of 908 theaters before dropping to 14th place. Even though it dropped from most theaters, it did stay in a small amount of them for 54 weeks.
Holy shit.
So it did not make a ton of money, but it did okay.
It did a pretty good run.
All right. Oh, here we go. All right. Tale of the tape. DC Cab. There's the back of our VHS. December 16th, 1983. It is a comedy. It is rated R and comes in at 1 hour and 39 minutes.
This all sounds very promising.
Here are the taglines.
Let's go.
Let the wackiest cab company in town take you for a ride.
Not the greatest.
When these guys hit the streets, guess what hits the fan?
Oh, that's pretty good.
Pity the fool who messes with Mr. T.
Perfect.
And that was it. Here is the synopsis. Aspiring taxi driver Albert Hockenberry, Adam Baldwin, arrives in Washington, D.C. to work for a service run by family friend Harold Oswald, Max Gail, whose uniformly eccentric employees, that's better, drive ancient cabs. When a priceless violin is found in one of the cars, the 10,000 reward money needed to keep the business afloat is stolen by Harold's bitter wife, Myrna Anne de Salvo. Determined to save the company, Harold pledges his life savings towards the business.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's wacky and silly. There's the poster. They really, Mr. T was, for those listening, Mr. T in the 80s was huge. I don't even know what he did other than like he appeared in WrestleMania. He appeared in Rocky 3. And then he did some other, and he appeared on children's programs and told people like to stay in school.
Dude, you're missing the A-Team.
But when did the A-Team come out? I think this was before the A-Team.
We're gonna find out. Okay, so this was 1983.
So they shot in 82. Maybe the A-Team just came out and they're like, holy shit, this thing's A-Team started in 83. You're right.
Damn.
So it was huge. I remember A-Team being huge.
So by the time the A-Team would have hit, but he was already like, he's one of those personality, like celebrities where he was also another hustler. Like he was out there, he was working it.
And I remember the Mr. T cereal. I remember seeing the Mr. T cereal in stores, and I fondly remember Pee-wee's Big Adventure because he ate Mr. T cereal and he pitied the fool that tried to eat his cereal. Mr. T. But the poster is it's Mr. T and it's all cartoony stuff. It looks very silly and wacky, all drawn. And he's holding the door to a cab. It says DC Cab. At DC Cab, when these guys hit the streets, guess what hits the fan? Obviously, it's a comedy. You can tell by the poster. It's not a bad poster. I wouldn't hang it anywhere.
No, it's not a hangable poster.
No. All right, so this is where I think we might have. Hold on, let me see, because I think I mixed these up.
It's okay, I forgive you.
Here, let me click it away. Do. All right, let's go to Rotten Tomatoes. 11 critics. This movie comes in at 18%.
Wow.
That is 18% is 2. 2 critics liked it.
That's wow.
5,000 audience members comes in at 52%. So the audience kind of split, kind of just slightly over half liked it. So you may start with the fresh. There are only 2 of them, so you can have the first one.
Thanks. Appreciate it. An inessential but inoffensive hangout movie. Eddie Harrison, filmauthority.com, 3 out of 5.
DC Cab jumps you in the spirit of a big, shaggy, and affection-craving pooch. You may wish it weren't quite so sloppily demonstrative, but it's too full of zest and goodwill to be resisted. Gary Arnold, The Washington Post.
That was a lot more positive than mine was.
Yes. All right. So you may start with these ones. These are great.
Okay. This is one of the worst comedies I have ever seen. There were so many scenes that made no sense. It was a painful viewing experience. Brandon Collins, medium popcorn, 1 out of 5.
This movie should have never been made. Everyone involved in this film should have reconsidered their careers after this one. Justin Brown, medium popcorn, 1 out of 5.
What can you say about a film that has Mr. T in a starring role? Dennis Schwartz. Dennis Schwartz movie reviews, C+. You could say a lot, Dennis. You could say a lot of good things.
By any rational measure, DC Cab is pretty terrible, but for all its faults, it's our movie because it gets the fact that this town has more sides than just the two on either side of the congressional aisle. Ian Buckwalter, Washington City Paper, and even though he said kind of something nice, he gave it 4 out of 10.
It's lewd, crude, and rude, but it deserves a salute for featuring as eclectic a cast as can be found this side of Otto Preminger Skidoo. Matt Brunson, Film Frenzy, 2 out of 4.
Yeah, Matt Brunson. DC Cab is not an entirely bad movie. It has its moments. But if it had used more actual taxi riding incidents and more recognizable driver types, it could have been a little masterpiece. Roger Ebert, Chicago Sun-Times, 2 out of 4.
That was super nice.
Yeah, for a bad review.
Yeah.
IMDb, 5.3 thousand, 5,300. User rating comes in at 5.5 out of 10. Pretty close to Rotten Tomatoes audience. So let's go start at 10, and you may start.
I'm ready. Something about cabs. I don't know. It's got Mr. T in it. That's all you need. 10 out of 10. Full of Redis.
One of my absolute favorites from the 80s. 9 out of 10. Messele Williams, 220.
Look at that cast. 8 out of 10. Magnum etched.
It ain't Shakespeare. 7 out of 10. Zanos. It has an asterisk. It was the only one at 7.
I mean, it's eloquent. You don't need anything else.
No.
Guilty Pleasure. 6 out of 10. Snavely 6.
Like most cabs, it stinks just a bit. But I try not to laugh because it's true. 5 out of 10. Jay Zvedza.
There is a cab smell. I'd like to point. There is a cab smell.
There is, yeah. And when you got someone that's working 8 to 18 hours a day, you're gonna get a cab smell. They're eating in there.
Yeah, there's always a cab smell.
Yeah, it's there.
A nice message, but a dumb movie and not family fare. 4 out of 10. CC the Movie Man, 1. What about an R-rated comedy did he think was going to be family fare?
Maybe because I had Mr. T.
Ugh.
Again, the only one that was there. Outright overacted hilarity. 3 out of 10. I read this one, TEH Memories. He just said the acting was horrible. It was just so overacted that it just was stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them were mostly comedians and.
Well, yeah. Even as a fan of Mr. T, I couldn't swallow this swill. 2 out of 10, Movie Man Kev. And this was the only 2 out of 10 that we had.
Yep. There was no 1 out of 10.
Oh,
Well,
that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
All right. So we went over the box office. We went over the tail of the tape, and we looked at the reviews. Let us watch the trailer and then make our prediction.
Washington, D.C., seat of the nation, served by the dedicated men and women of D.C. Cab.
We're the worst company in town, and we know it. Where to, baby?
Nowhere with you.
You ain't got no company.
You have an asylum.
Kill. Get out of my cab, I'm ready.
Pleased to meet you, Miss Oswald.
They had enough class.
How do you do?
My cab ain't no motel. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You're a pitiful specimen of manhood.
Enough style.
Just as I suspected. Look at this room. It isn't fit for Caucasians.
But where y'all going? What it look like?
Enough integrity.
You charge Mr. and Mrs. Tomatsu $195.
They had a lot of luggage.
Enough spirit. To drive a whole city crazy.
You don't have to shut us down.
This company is closed pending further investigation.
But when it looked like their number was up, that's when they really got down.
Make an investment in DC Cab.
Are you saying that we'd be like partners?
If I wanted responsibility, I'd have been a damn sex surrogate.
We just might make something of ourselves.
Well, not actually do anywhere for a few years.
They proved that anybody can be somebody if they're ready to reach for a big enough dream.
And I ain't never going back to being what I was before. Never.
So put your life in the hands of Adam Baldwin, Charlie Barnett, Irene Cara, Max Gail, Bill Maher,
Tough to be a man, baby.
Paul Rodriguez, Mr. T, and Gary Busey. It's everything you always wanted in a cab company. And less. DC Cab.
This movie found its synthesizer. All right. What is your prediction about DC Cab?
I think this is going to be absolutely terrible. Like just a big steaming pile of shit.
Yeah.
But now my question is it going to be entertaining shit? Or am I going to want to throw up?
I think
Tough choice.
we were worried about when we did Smokey and the Bandit. We thought for sure it was going to be offensive, and it was not at all. Like a little tiny. This looks like it could be.
Yeah,
just
no.
Just a little.
I feel like in my soul, I'm probably going to spend a lot of time being like, oh God, that's terrible.
I have not seen this movie probably since the 80s, which means I was super young. I probably thought it was funny because they were wacky, they were cursing, they were doing silly stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I think, it's probably going to be bad. It's just, it could be entertainingly bad.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for that because if I spend an hour and 39 minutes just being like, really, guys? Really? That's the joke you're going to make? It's fine. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
All right. Well, we are going to go and watch DC Cab. And when we come back, we are going to review it before we go on and preview Death Wish 2 for our drive-in special.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And now, on with the show.
Welcome back, everybody. Did you watch DC Cab from 1983? Uh-oh. You're muted. So hold on. You're muted on your end.
Happen.
There you go. Did you watch DC Cab?
I did.
What's your initial thoughts?
That was a steaming pile of shit.
It was not a well done movie, no.
Not
What's
even
your
a little bit.
What's your initial thoughts?
Why the fuck did they make this movie? Like it was okay. It wasn't painful to watch, but it wasn't fun to watch either. Like I realized we were probably an hour into the movie before I actually laughed out loud at one thing. And it wasn't any of the action. It wasn't any of the dialogue. It was a t-shirt. I laughed really hard at that.
The t-shirt.
The doctor t-shirt.
The what t-shirt? The doctor one?
The doctor t-shirt. Yeah. One of the guys wearing a doctor t-shirt. It looks like a white coat, tie, little.
Oh, yeah.
I laughed out loud at that. Nothing else. Well, actually, no. There were a few small, like, towards the end, but it was. I spent the majority of the movie going, what? That's it. Like, what? which was a little upsetting. But I mean, it was a chaotic movie, but not even like a chaotic movie that has purpose. It was just randomly chaotic, and I was
It
like,
was very chaotic.
it was so hard to follow, and I was trying to find the story within it. Because even the shittiest movies should have a basic story. You should be able to sum it up in like 3 sentences of what the story's about.
Oh yeah, you can tell. You
can't do
couldn't
that with this
here.
movie.
No, not at all.
But yeah, what were your thoughts? Tell me yours.
I am so sorry, but the nostalgia of having watched this movie umpteen times as a kid, I still liked it. Don't get me wrong. This is a horrible movie. There's no defending this as like an actual movie.
Yeah.
It was paced wrong. It was politically incorrect.
The slurs.
It's awesome. It turns into a cartoon. The silliness of the 80s and 90s of taking a regular story of characters and turning it into this like international calamity that must be solved by these silly people that in reality would have no chance of doing. And this movie didn't have just one, it had like 3 of them. Like it just kept going and going and going to get to those other parts. I get it, but yeah, you couldn't sum this movie up. I would say like Mr. T.
Honestly,
Mr. T. Gary Busey.
Mr. T. There's so much. Like I understand the concept. Collection of oddballs working at this cab company. Cool. But it's one of those things where you're watching it and you're like, I don't know.
Too much.
Yeah, like it was just so like normally when there's crazy, there's a reason for the crazy. And there's too much crazy to get a handle on it. And I'm sure if you like you said, the nostalgia is like this is hardcore 80s. 100%.
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah.
And I feel like it's supposed to be a comedy. But it almost like just kind of it went off the rails really early on.
And kept going off the rails.
It kept going off the rails.
Yeah,
it kept finding the rails and going off of it again and again and again. And I was like, nah, man.
And it usually didn't find the rails that it was once on. It found new rails and then went fucking off those rails.
So many rails.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go through this movie. Naive but good-natured young man Albert Hockenberry, Baldwin, arrives in Washington, D.C. with plans to work for his late father's army buddy, Harold, Gail, that's our Barney Miller dude, owner of the rundown District of Columbia Cab Company, DC Cab. Aware of the sorry state of his business and growing competition from the popular Emerald Cab Company, Harold wants to clean it up but does not have the financial means to do so. Complicating matters is the motley group of cab drivers that he has working for him. They all see driving as a dead-end job while they wait for better lives until Albert inspires them to work as a team. Okay, so Wikipedia, fucking their synopsis is like 2 paragraphs.
Yeah. They couldn't get a handle on the crazy either.
No. Okay, so the movie starts with the game that we really don't get explained as how this game works.
No.
But all the players, the cab drivers, wear these creepy masks, chase another player. But the movie starts off with us thinking these are psychos chasing this guy. Then they chase him down this tunnel thing. And then he yells, "Time out," because he lost one of the rollers out of his hair. And then he screams, "Suckers," and runs away and chases, and he gets away in his cab.
Yeah.
They start chasing him, and he starts playing the Mission Impossible theme music over the radio.
Yes, which is so helpful to the dispatcher.
And then the dispatch is like, "Anyone there?
Anybody? And I'm like, I have a feeling this is why the cab company's not doing well.
Exactly.
They set up the beginning like a horror movie.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, weird.
And it is creepy and weird. And you're like, what is going on?
And I'm
already you're like,
I'm like, what the fuck? And then it's like, I kept hearing roll up. And I was like, oh, roll up. What? And then I was like, oh, is he talking about the rollers? Or is he talking about his roll? Like a rolled joint? Because I'd stop everything to go looking for. If it's a plastic roller, I'll just go buy more. But it was a very weird beginning, and then the Mission Impossible song starts,
Yeah,
which
the dun, dun,
dun,
and they're all
dun,
going
dun,
nuts
dun.
in their car.
Yeah, and they're all losing their minds, and I'm like, I okay. Because nobody explains anything.
No.
And and then we see young Albert Hockenberry arrive in DC and start randomly asking people on the streets,
Yeah, where's DC Cab?
"Where is DC Cab?"
How would they know?
Fuck right. What? I was like, "What?" And then he's asking this is one of the problems I had. He asked, um, the people who were kinda dressed as Rastafarians, we'll say, or what was considered
Yeah, and he was the guy's dancing on
Caribbean
DC
guys
Cab.
dancing
Yeah.
on the DC Cab. He asks them about it. They don't say anything, and they just grunt at him. There are grunt and I was like, "So, let me get this straight. You can't pay" this was my thought, "You can't pay the extra to say no, so you're gonna put in post effects of grunts,"
Hmm.
which, by the way, not a good look when you've got black Rasta-styled people dancing on a car in downtown DC. I'm like, "This is a little fucked up."
Yeah. Come on,
Yeah.
it's 1983.
It was fucked up in 1983, and it's fucked up now.
This isn't the only politically incorrect. This is just the beginning.
This is just there's
There's
so much
so
wrong. I looked up who the writer is, and I was like, "Oh, buddy." It was a black writer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Did Joel Schumacher just, like, go to town with this? Was there a ghost writer, a ghost editor?" I'm like, "This is" because then I looked up the writer's other, like, other credits, and there was some stuff in there that I really liked, and I was like, he wrote on Martin, the TV
Yeah.
show, for 2 years, and he was credited as, like, I think a co-creator, and I was like, "I love Martin. Martin was amazing. This is not." Anywho,
So,
Albert finally finds the
yeah. So, okay. So then we get the 80s montage, and that's Albert
Mm.
trying to get to the DC Cab, trying to make his way to the DC Cab company. And it shows different cab drivers getting into shenanigans, getting kicked out of the airport because they don't have a
Mm.
license to be there. Mr. T picking up a businessman and an obvious prostitute who starts
Yep.
going down on the businessman, and Mr. T, horrified, kicks them out.
He says, "My cab is not a motel.
It's not
I gotta get that bread.
Yeah,
Go
pitiful excuse for a man, and you need to get a real job.
Yeah, I gotta get that bread. Go to the bakery."
Yeah, go to the bakery. Paul Rodriguez, Xavier, trying to pick up the woman, tries to pick up the woman, and then and drive them to their destination at the same time.
Yeah, he picks up the woman, and then he's like, "So where are you going?" And she's like, nowhere with you. Bye."
The Barbarian Twins, and I call them the Barbarian Twins because in the 80s they made a fairly popular sword Dungeons and Dragons type movie that actually I remember being really good, but it's been a while. So starring these two guys.
I don't trust you. I don't
No.
trust your
I don't
judgment
trust
anymore.
my judgment anymore either. His wife, then we get poor Ophelia getting robbed. I had to go and make these little jot notes here because Wikipedia has nothing. That little bit that I said at the beginning, and then they drop down to the violin being stolen and found. They just skip everything, and I get it. Poor Ophelia, she's getting robbed by a mugger.
Mm-hmm.
Then we meet Mr. Rhythm. The Barbarian Twins are holding up traffic. They're on opposite ends of the street, talking to each other, like side by side.
They're
going
in the
opposite ways. The two lanes.
The two separated. They're just sitting there.
The
talking,
trunk's
and
just
then,
laying on their horn, and they get out and just rip the cap.
Yeah. It's
all right,
pure chaos.
Oh,
it is pure unadulterated chaos. And then he gets into Dell's cab, I think, Albert. And then that's how he ends up getting to DC Cabs, I think. He rides in a cab.
Does he? Okay. Yeah. Because he
then
finally gets there.
He finally gets there. He says hi. But there was a conversation that was filled with inappropriate words.
Oh, that's coming up.
Oh, is that coming up?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
good.
coming up. I did. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There was so much chaos. It was so hard to follow. There was no rhyme or reason. It was literally just like it was almost an anthology of just batshit crazy.
Oh, I just think they just shot all this chaos and then whittled it down to an hour and 39 minutes.
Actually, that sounds accurate.
Yeah, this is what we got. Here we go. But Albert's dad went to Vietnam with Harold, and they were best friends. Albert's dad died. Harold didn't make it to the funeral, but Harold's super excited to see Albert. His wife, not so much. Then some cabbies need their cars, so Harold has to go work on them. We get the first, so we get first of Dell's Gary Busey jokes. He tells Harold's wife, Miriam, who he relentlessly hits on throughout this movie.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? I wrote it down here. What's the only thing wrong with oral sex? The View. And he just howls at himself. And he's just like, repeat the view, and no one's around anymore. He's just laughing on the table. Watching Gary Busey's character in this movie was like watching all my uncles at every holiday dinner of my childhood. Just no filter, totally inappropriate language.
Okay, I have a few uncles like that. They've mellowed in their old age.
Yes.
So, I mean, now that they're in their 80s, it's
Yeah,
not
well,
so bad.
yeah.
But
a few
like, they
years
would say
ago,
inappropriate stuff, and you're just like, God, do you have to be so terrible?
although when you're a kid, it's hilarious. You're like,
No, when I
"Ah,
was a
best."
kid, I was like, ew, gross.
Oh,
Why
well,
you
yeah,
talk about
maybe if you're a girl.
titties? Well, I'm not gonna say most of my uncles were pervs, but there were a lot of pervs in my family. And the men were mostly the pervs, and then the women were just like, I'm like, ew, this is gross. What is wrong with these people?
Then they tell, and then he sees Tyrone. Tyrone owes him money for the cab rental, and he's like, I got the money, and everyone comes over to get what he owes them, like $20 here, $10 there. We find out he has all this money because he overcharged a nice Asian couple, and the cab commissioner or the transport commissioner, I don't know what he was.
I think he was
Some sort of transit.
He was like
person.
not a transit cop, but like I think it was for cabs specifically or private transport, something like that. Because it wasn't like public transport, and it wasn't not really a city, like it was a city position in that he had to inspect and he was part of the regulatory things for cabs, but it's not like he was in charge of like public buses or anything like that.
And then he was with the Asian couple, and he was telling them that we're going to shut you down. And then Harold is like, I've got the money, da 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 da. Yeah, because he's overcharged these people. And all the warnings going on. As he's doing that, Tyrone puts his hand in and puts the car in reverse. So when they go to leave, he backs up and smashes a Chinese restaurant where all the people of the Chinese restaurant come out, yelling at everybody. And Tyrone, another politically incorrect part, makes the Chinese face as he drives away. Oh, this movie was so bad.
It was a lot of terrible. I see why it was funny in the 80s, though. I'm gonna put that out there.
What's that?
I see why it was funny in the 80s.
Yes, and making the Chinese face and doing the ho 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 ho. A lot of people did that in the 80s.
Yeah,
people did when they usually at my house and at my uncle's house, and it was a big group. We would order pizza, we would order whatever. If someone said, "Let's order Chinese food," oh my God, let the politically incorrectness just roll. It was, and we are talking about the 80s. We didn't know better. And it wasn't me.
I would argue maybe we knew better, but
Maybe we knew better.
It was widely accepted.
There was
a lot of there's nothing wrong. It's all in good fun. I don't mean it bad.
Yeah, no. And really back then people didn't give a shit. They
No,
really didn't.
not enough. Yeah. Not enough people gave a shit.
No. Yeah, and then where are we here? So with that, for those listening, if you're easily offended, this is
don't watch this.
Definitely not the movie for you.
No.
Like
don't
if you're super easy offended, no, don't watch this movie.
It's kind of gross. Like, don't do it. Don't.
Harold and Albert go back and stay at his house and drink all night, where Albert announces he wants to become a cab driver to one day open his own cab. We get where his wife wants a beer and yells at him. We get we find like that the wife is not a nice person.
She is not happy in the relationship, and
No, and if you
even
look at her
though
house,
yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't be happy either if I was literally missing walls. But excuse me. It's funny because she's like, "Who drank the last beer or whatever? There's not even a beer for me. You know I need to have a beer while watching Johnny
watch
Carson
Johnny.
to go to sleep." And I was like, "Girl, I feel like you should look into that because that's a problem."
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
Johnny Carson, that's the late night host you're gonna pick? Okay.
You didn't
I
like
mean,
Johnny?
Johnny Carson was super popular.
Yes, really popular.
Really, really popular. So I'm like, I get it. But like, she's like, no, I need it. Now I don't want to drink it. Even if you brought me all the beer, I wouldn't drink any of it. And da da da. And I was like, you're not happy at all. And
No.
all Harold does is, I'm gonna go get some beer.
And then he gets him the sheets and the blanket. I like the part where he goes, if you're cold, he goes, I brought this home from Nam. He puts on a fucking blowtorch. And then like just lights it by just blasting with the
Yeah.
a blow. It's not sorry,
It's a
it's not a
flamethrower.
blowtorch, a flamethrower.
A flamethrower. He starts the fire with the fire in the fireplace.
Yeah, and
in the
he's
house.
drunk.
Yeah.
And he's got a big smile on his face as he's blasting his fireplace with this flamethrower.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. See, that's another crazy. Like, there's a reason for the crazy, but that's another crazy where I'm like, did we even need this? Did we? No, we didn't.
Then yeah, I do like him riding. So he decides that if Albert's going to get some experience by driving around with all the other cab drivers. I did like how he went with every cab driver like an apprentice. So we get to see the other cabbies, thus getting even more politically incorrectness, seeing tons of them, like Gary Busey. And this is where he's talking. What does he say here? I wrote it down. Don't cancel me. Just repeating it.
No, feel free to use some euphemisms.
Yeah, because he said DC is 75%. Now he doesn't say the full N word here.
Eventually he does. But
does he?
Yeah. Because it starts with the shorter version of the N-word.
And he says or black or colored or whatever you want to call them.
Whatever
you're calling them.
And then he keeps talking for a bit, and then he says, because I have the literal note, I'm like, Gary Busey just using the whole N-word. Just right up in there. And it's weird because in 1983, we still knew it was a bad word. We still knew.
Oh, I think before 1983, we knew it was a bad word.
Yeah. Yeah.
They pick up a topless stripper or waitress or whatever. We see her boobies as she's changing, even though she tells him not to look. Yeah. And then she skips out on the fair. And Dell sends Albert in to get money. And we see a shitload of boobies.
So many boobies.
So many boobies.
This movie found time for the boobies.
Albert gets thrown out because she said that he touched her or something like that. And then Dell goes in and practically robs her.
Yeah.
Take all her money that's in her G-string. And her G-string comes with it. Yeah.
She runs outside buck naked.
Buck naked.
And then somebody comes in and tries to cover her with a tablecloth.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, didn't really do its job because we see some full frontal. There's a little bit of bush there. I'm like, okay, this is definitely the 80s. It was all just a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, and then Xavier with the cha-cha-cha music playing and the Latino horn, the cucaracha, telling Albert that he wants to land a rich woman to take care of him. We also get the Barbarian twins driving backwards, screaming at all the other cars, telling the story of the guy getting sliced in half.
Yes, also because their car only goes in reverse.
Only goes in reverse, yeah.
Only goes in reverse. They're on their way to the garage to get it fixed, but it only goes in reverse.
Mr. T driving around with Albert and his niece, taking her to school, and then he sees the local drug dealer and gets out and yells at the kids to go back to school, and he wishes he could help clean up the neighborhood. Him practicing for the cab, for his cabbie test, his wife being meaner, some other shenanigans. Oops. Give me 1 second here.
Oh, no worries.
Crap. What was that? Gary Busey was just laying in the urinals. the bathroom?
Yeah, he was laying on the bathroom floor, and the bathroom floor looked disgusting.
And he's like,
then
"What are you doing, Del?"
intestinal yoga.
Yoga, and just starts laughing at himself.
I couldn't even I was like, that is a grungy bathroom floor.
It looked gross.
It
Del,
looked
are
so
you?
gross. I couldn't even focus because I was like, that's disgusting.
Yeah, like again, he's even like, "Are you all right?" He's like,
Yeah,
"Never better." Just doing some
intestinal yoga.
intestinal yoga.
The fuck?
Where are we go? Okay, so there's so Ophelia gets robbed again and is gonna walk out, and then Harold convinces her to stay.
Okay,
We
can we
get
talk about that conversation though, real quick? Because I was very uncomfortable with how it went. Like Harold was basically manhandling her. And
because she wanted
of
to
course,
leave.
because she kept wanting to leave. And instead of just standing in front of her or like putting his arm on, the lockers to kind of block her way, he was literally pushing her and manhandling her. And I was like, this is not okay.
I blame that on the director.
I
he
blame
would've
it on everybody because is nobody saying this is fucking weird.
It was weird, and if you would have just moved the camera to another spot, he could have done that easily.
Or even just given the direction, like, don't put your hands
Or
on
yeah,
her.
again,
Because
1983. I
that,
don't think
like,
that was a.
he was literally manhandling her, like, both hands on her, pushing her back against the lockers, pushing. And I was like, dude, this woman is trying to tell you she's sick of getting held up at gunpoint. And your answer is to just keep pushing her into the lockers until she, like, succumbs to your pressure and says, fine, I'll stay. I'm like, that's fucking weird and gross.
They go out for a beer though. That they go to an all male review.
Yeah.
And they wait for the women to come out, and for whatever reason, these women just want to go hang out with these lunatics and their shitty cabs.
I think it's because they were all standing on their cabs dancing when the women came out.
Oh yeah, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They were
Yeah.
like, ooh, the show's over. And they all jumped on their cabs and started like bumping and grinding.
I
And
get
I'm like,
the Barbarian twins, but Paul Rodriguez and Tyrone, like Tyrone didn't even look like he could, like he was like having a seizure.
oh my God, such a grabbing at his crotch. And I was like, that is not sexy on anybody. What the fuck is happening? That was another what the fuck is happening moment. And so many times. I was like, the fuck.
And then Albert, no one wants to take Albert, so he walks back, and then he talks to Bubba, who is Bill Maher, and who drops some wisdom on him. Then they're at the diner, and then we get again like Dale just hitting on the what did you say? I can suck the white off your teeth.
Yeah,
It's so gross.
Totally, 100%.
And then she's like, "Not now, I got a headache," and that's when he grabs her by the head and says,
Yeah.
"Lord, heal this woman."
Yeah. See, I would have stabbed him if he did that to me.
Gary Busey is insane.
Uh-huh.
I don't think he acts. I think he's nuts. Like every movie, like you just watch him, you're like, I don't think he's acting. I think he's a lunatic. And I love Gary Busey.
We all, like deep down inside, we all love Gary Busey.
But I
at
think
the
he's a
same time,
lunatic.
we all think he's a little unstable.
Albert sees the diner's owner's granddaughter.
Yep.
At this, it was bugging me who she was. Her name is Jill Sholin. She was in The Stepfather, the original one, Phantom of the Opera with Robert Englund, the popcorn movie. She's been in a ton of B horror movies.
Oh, she was in When a Stranger Calls Back. Maybe that's why I recognized her.
Yeah. Yeah, she's been in a few. Not a ton, but she's been in a few.
Oh, she was also in When a Stranger Calls. Interesting.
There you go. The original one or
the original
remake?
one? Yeah. That's a good remake. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it's a good remake.
Emerald Taxi keeps trying to poach Ophelia. Because she's and even Harold is like, you're my best driver. Like everyone else here is a fucking moron. And you're
She's the only one who seems even relatively sane.
Yeah. Her and Bill Maher. He seems
kind of
More
normal.
than the other ones.
Yeah.
Everyone else is fucking nuts.
He seems like the kind of his character. Let's make this clear so we don't get sued. His character seems like the kind of guy who has a lot of white man tears.
Yeah.
Poor me. Poor me. Nobody gives me everything I want on a silver platter. Me.
You don't like Bill Maher?
No.
Really?
No.
I love Bill Maher.
He's got some really fucked up takes. He's got some really fucked up takes where I'm like, sir, have you been snorting some stuff? Because I'm concerned. If your brain came to that conclusion, you've been hit in the head.
I think we should do a daily news show. I think we'd be great. Because I think we have not completely polar opposites, but definitely some opposites.
We definitely have some opposites, which is kind of funny to me. Just because I'm like, it makes sense. Like, we're gonna have very different.
Oh, I thought because I'm white and
I'm white.
What are you? You're Portuguese.
I'm Portuguese.
You're kind of white. You're off white.
I get
eggshell
mistaken for a person of color constantly because I have too much olive in my skin tone and my hair is dark, almost black and curly.
Black.
So people are like, what are you? And I'm
Hey,
like,
you're not white. Get out of here.
I'm just like a basic European, but also according to Europeans, Portuguese, Spanish, Italians, we're the swarthy ones. They don't really consider us white either. And I'm like, nah, man, we're just as white and as colonizing as the rest of you motherfuckers.
Oh, yeah.
If not more so. Thank you.
Yeah. You're in the jacuzzi you're in the hot tub with all us colonizing whiteys.
Yes, we are.
So a fight breaks out at the diner. And then the commissioner and the violin.
Yes. Apparently a violinist has lost his violin, which is worth, I think, $100,000.
Yeah. And so I think it's worth like $500,000.
Oh, okay. And so whichever cabbie finds it
gets a reward. Then we get where we see Mr. T, his niece driving around with the drug dealer, and he loses it.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrone goes to his cab. Oh, because Albert wanted to drive with Tyrone. He's the only one that he hasn't driven with yet. Tyrone won't do it, but then he gets to his cab, and there's Albert not budging. They drive the maids to the ambassador's house with the two kids, are waiting with the eggs, and Tyrone drives them every day. This is very important later on. Then Tyrone goes to the airport and they pick up that drunk who wants to go to the airport that they're already at. And he's like, $50. And then 5 feet later, he's like, international airport, that'll be $50. Then we get Albert giving money back. And
because he says he won't help him steal.
Yeah. And Tyrone gets mad. And then he gets a speech where he's pretending to be a crazy black man wearing curlers when in reality he was in college and he was going to get himself a Mercedes, but he got hip to the scam and he showed them by dropping out and being part of the system. And I'm like, what the fuck is this man talking about? Like, Jesus Christ. Because it was a long speech.
It was a long speech, and that would
made no sense.
Well, it would make sense in a different movie.
Yes, in a very
in this movie with this character that we've seen so far up until now, it don't make no goddamn sense. Period. End of sentence. It makes no fucking sense.
No, I can only surmise that there was a little bit more to this that got cut.
If somebody cut
maybe not
more to this, then I don't know who the fuck was Joel Schumacher's doing wrong by this movie. If more was cut, but the character we've seen is just a crazy.
He's crazy.
He's just crazy, like absolutely batshit crazy. And then all of a sudden, he has this, like, his curler is actually the head full of curlers is actually a wig. He takes it off. He goes off on this whole thing about how the system and school and it's a scam and I thought I could have it, but I can't. Da 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 da. And I was like, that speech belongs in a different movie. For a different character.
Yeah.
This is not, it would make sense if he even talked about why he plays the crazy, but he doesn't. Like, he doesn't explain how dropping out of school because he couldn't get a Mercedes. I don't understand that. connects to him and his current persona. I'm just like, this is so fucking random.
Yeah. Yeah. So then he leaves Albert behind. Then he goes back and gets Albert.
Mm.
Then they go to the graveyard and hang out. And Tyrone's mad because he's missing the game, and you hear the Mission Impossible music playing. Albert wants to join, but it's only for Psychic Blood Brothers of DC Cab. Is that what it
I
was?
guess so.
And he's like, well, how do I become one of them? They start driving down the railroad tracks, listening to Irene Cara, which is also important.
Mm.
It's important later on. We get a lot of politically incorrect here. I do like him talking about Albert being chicken shit and don't give me your daddy is dead shit. He said, my daddy came back from Korea and he thought he was Jesus, and they put him in a loony bin. And then they let him out and he thought it was God, which made me Jesus. What the fuck is this guy talking about?
I was trying so hard to follow the conversation, and then I was like, I don't know. I think they're just saying
This is
words.
crazy.
They're just saying words.
The cab gets stuck as the train is coming. Albert gets stuck trying to get out. Tyrone decides to help him, and he's like, if I get killed, Albert, I'm gonna kick your ass. The train's barreling down. Tyrone's screaming, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And then it's actually on another track, and they're all both sweating, and Tyrone's like, I knew it was that all the time. And then he passes out. On the way back to the yard, they get robbed by the same guy who was robbing Ophelia. Who jumps into their cab, but Albert takes off, and he's like, see, Tyrone, I ain't no chicken shit. And Tyrone's like, this is when you should be chicken shit. Tyrone is like, oh, when he's I'm going to Negro heaven. I don't want to go to Negro heaven. He didn't say Negro.
No, he did not. He did not.
But he is black, so he's allowed to.
It's also just weird. Like,
yeah,
you can just say black heaven.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Albert tells the mugger, he's like, I'm gonna shoot your friend or shoot you, and he's like, whatever, then you'll die. And he's like, they get it they get to the cab thing, and he's telling to give the gun to Tyrone. And Tyrone's like, I don't want the gun. I don't want the gun. Then Tyrone grabs the gun. And he's like, I got the gun, you motherfucker. And the cops automatically think Tyrone is the mugger and start beating on him.
Yep.
That was awesome. But because they're all while this was all going on, they start they're saying that there's a $10,000 reward. They're trying to figure out whose cab it belongs, and the commissioner dude says Harold owns the company, therefore he owns all the cab. He's getting the money.
Yeah.
And then he announces about that it's a $10,000 reward, and he's going to share it. And they all go ape shit. His wife loses it. Then they meet Harold at Harold's house, where Myrna has locked them out, taken the money house, and they're trying to get in, and she's shooting the flamethrower out the window at all the cab drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot going on here.
It's funny because she said that she saw somebody on, I think it was like the Today Show or Good Morning America or something like that. And then she was like, I'm entitled. I'm entitled. So she takes the house, changes the locks, uses a flamethrower to keep people from trying to climb in through the window on the upper level, because why use the window on the main floor where you don't have to climb up the porch roof? Because that would be ridiculous. Why would you do that? Yeah. And everybody's just screaming at her, and she's in the window wearing a very lovely silk nightie, and it's all just very odd.
Yeah.
Wielding a flamethrower
With a flamethrower, yeah.
out the window. I'm like, I feel like that's not safe.
Now we get back to where Wikipedia is. A valuable violin is found in one of the cabs, earning Harold and his wife $10,000 reward as owners of the cabs. Harold wants to share the money with the drivers and let them invest in the cab company as partners. However, his greedy wife, Myrna, picks up the reward money and tosses Harold and Albert's belongings out of the house. The cabbies are not happy about losing their share of the reward, so Albert decides to donate $6,000 of his own money to the cab company and convinces the drivers to stay and make something of the company and themselves. The cabbies completely overhaul the entire business, and revitalized company soon supplements Emerald Cab as the most popular in the city. Yes, they're all going to quit till Albert produces his life savings from his dad
in cash.
except Tyrone. Tyrone doesn't stick around. Yeah, he has all the cash in his fucking.
Yeah, Tyrone is like, man, fuck that shit, and he leaves.
Yeah. They get the cars fixed up, new jackets, new sign, all and 80s montage.
Yeah.
They get airport licenses. Dell gets a new car system and blows out his windows as he's screaming. He didn't care.
And the roof collapses. The roof of the car collapses.
And the roof of the car, I didn't get that part.
I didn't get that part either. But I'm like, hey, apparently his car is made of cardboard. That's cool.
Yeah. Albert shows up. Because the grandmother said one day a nice gentleman's going to come in here with chocolates and flowers and ask my daughters to date my granddaughter. So Albert shows up with chocolates and a book and flowers and asks the diner if he can take out Claudette. And she says, yeah. So everything's going smoothly.
Yes. Also, if you've watched any TV from the 80s or 90s, you recognize the grandmother.
What is she from? Yes, I did recognize it. What is
you
she
recognize
from?
her and you're like, I know that face. So
Yeah.
she has done so many things.
Oh, she's one of those where she just is in everything.
She was on Diagnosis Murder, Popular, Murder She Wrote, Air Force One, Married with Children,
Yeah.
Seinfeld, Melrose Place, Wings, Nash Bridges. I don't know who watched that, but somebody did. Grace Under Fire, Sisters, Outbreak.
Yeah, so she has that look where she can be sweet old lady or a mean old lady.
Yeah, she's been in so much. And if you watched any TV in the 80s or 90s, you have seen her. She has done an episode of Baywatch, Quantum Leap, Home Improvement. She's been an episode of Matlock.
Yeah, everything.
Everything. Actually,
like
2
those
episodes.
actors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's like, I was looking at her and I was like, I know your face. I know your face. And then I looked her up and I was like, I've seen your face a million times.
Because if you're a decent actor, which it can't be that hard. I'm not talking about a great actor. I'm not talking about Academy. I'm just like a run of the mill actor.
If you're a really good character actor,
and you have a look,
yeah,
whether you're bald or you're wacky looking, you're fat, tall, skinny. If you have just an off look, you could probably make a decent living. Like her, like she probably made a pretty good living just appearing in every goddamn TV show.
A lot of the shows that she did are notorious for using the same actor in multiple roles in different episodes. So like in Matlock, she had 2 different characters. She's done a couple episodes of she did an episode, I think, and then special for Murder She Wrote. So a lot of those, like especially the weekly story shows, like the Matlocks, the Diagnosis Murder, whatever, where they had like a murder each episode or a story that was contained into the episode. It very much, a lot of the actors would get recast because they're like, he does good work. He can totally do this. We'll just hire him. We do this in animation all the time.
Right.
So for voice actors, we'll be we know this actor can do this voice, this voice. I had one show that I worked on and literally we had the same actor for like 6 different roles because he could do 6 different voices.
Yeah.
So we're like, great, we'll just bring him in and like have him record for like an hour and he'll do everything.
Yeah.
So she's one of those actors that you like, she can do it. Let's bring her in.
Yeah. Okay, so everything is going smoothly. Dell shows up. Tyrone is selling Americana souvenirs to tourists. He's dressed up like Uncle Sam. He sees Irene Cara, we mentioned her earlier, coming to the hotel and takes Dell's cab to pick her up, of course. Also, later on, the cabbies. So I'm back on Wikipedia. Cabbies work together to rescue Albert and the diplomat's 2 children, and they're kidnapped. So Tyrone always drove these ladies to their work as maids to the ambassador's house. Now Albert is doing it. This time, though, the kidnappers are waiting, and they grab the kids. And Albert, I can't remember how Albert got fucking thrown into the.
Well, because
I think he was trying to help. And
he was trying to help. The 2 maids end up getting pushed down.
Yeah.
One guy manages to grab the girl and get her into the van. But then security starts. The other guy has the little boy. Albert's trying to help, trying to stop him from taking the little boy. Security comes and the kidnapper says, "You're going to drive us or I'm going to shoot him." So Albert has to drive him in the cab because the van has already taken off with the little girl and the other kidnapper. Or the other 2 kidnappers. My apologies.
Right.
It's 2 men and a woman. The woman was dressed like a nun.
That's right. So we get the authorities getting demands, and Albert's made to give the demands.
Mhm. With a
And
gun
then
pointed to his head. We should
yeah,
point.
and then he's all nerd, and the kids are like, "Is this your first kidnapping, Albert?" It's our third. We get the stud muffin call when they're waiting for the ransom to come in, and that's
Yeah.
I guess prostitute calls the ambassador.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it was so lovely.
And the authorities all think that Albert is part of it. They think DC Cab got this makeover from Albert's illegal doings. They close
Mhm.
DC Cab. Everyone's going to quit again until Mr. T gives a speech. They try and come up with something. Tyrone comes in with papers, and he's not looking crazy anymore. Then they decide, as only a wacky 80s caper can do, to find Albert themselves. They interrogate the younger maid, then pose as doctors to interrogate the older maid. That's where we
And
get
that's where the doctor t-shirt was.
the t-shirt, and this food isn't fit for Caucasians.
Yeah.
This is all just silly wackiness. And Harold goes to get his stuff from the house, finds Miriam sleeping with the transit commissioner guy, throws him
Yes,
out the
wearing
window into the
some very
pool.
nice red
Yeah.
briefs.
He's wearing the thongs.
I was like, why is he wearing a Speedo? And then I realized, no, this was the 80s. Underwear
Yeah.
looked like that back then.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it still does for some people today. But
Not
yeah,
this
I
guy.
was like, oh
No.
shit. Racy.
Albert escapes. I do like how hard he works at getting free, and when he finally does, the kids are already free, and they're like,
That was
"Yay,
amazing.
Albert!"
They were like, good for you, little buddy.
He goes to his cab to use the radio, but all the cabs are locked up, so he gets Mr. Rhythm,
Mhm.
and then he tells him he's at a farm with a wimble, and then he sees Bruce Lee. So Mr. Rhythm finds everybody and says this, tells them. They break out all the cabs. And then they go looking for a farm, a windmill, and Bruce Lee. I like the Barbarian twins and Mr. T finding the Bruce Lee house. They come
Yeah.
through the windows in the door. It's just a family sitting
And
at
then
the
they just say,
table.
wrong house.
Oh, wrong
and
house.
leave.
Sorry.
And the best part is the mom or grandma just keeps eating.
Yeah, just eating.
She's like, three strange men just busted into the house. I'm going to keep eating.
And then we get Tyrone. He finds Bruce Lee, and he's like, I found that karate motherfucker. And it's the drive-in. They're watching a Bruce Lee movie at the drive-in. They find the farmhouse. They put the lights and pylons on the cabs to try to make it look like cop cars. Albert was already caught and tied back up, and they're trying to get the kidnappers to come out. Tyrone blows it. There's a shootout. Kids get away. Albert gets taken again. Mr. T screaming like a woman was almost worth the rental itself. Cabs chasing the kidnappers, chucking shit, beating the van with baseball bats. And I did like Ophelia. They got in front, and Ophelia was starting to throw her shit, and then she pulls out her dildo, and then she's like, and hands it to Bubba or Bobo, and
Sure.
he's like, yeah, you gotta have priorities. And Mr. T grabs Albert, and Tyrone asks if Albert's wearing his daddy's boots because they're too big for him, and he pulls off to the side, and the boots go flying off, and the day is saved, and Albert is saved, and I'm guessing cleared of all suspicion because the film ends with a parade in DC Cab's honor, followed by a post-credit scene with a shabby-looking dressed man climbing into the back of Tyrone's taxi cab and claiming to be the angel of death and requesting Tyrone to take him to hell, in which he asked by Tyrone, do you have any luggage? And that is our movie. And if you didn't understand a fucking word I just said, that's what it's like watching this movie. If you're going, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, he's been talking about this movie. I don't get what he said. Yeah, that's pretty much how the movie went.
Join the club. Join the club. None of us understand it. None of us.
So, what is your score?
My score is a hard skip it. Now, the only reason you should watch this is if you have seen it before and you loved it, or you were exceptionally inebriated, whether that be by drink or drugs. You've got to be high as a kite to watch this movie and enjoy it. There are moments that you kind of maybe laugh a little bit, or you're like, oh, that's a good gag. they are few but and far between. And there's enough just random, at least it feels random. Maybe it wasn't random in the first draft of the script, but there's enough random slurs thrown around. They use the N word, they use the F word, not the fun one, not fuck. And someone gets called a honky at one point.
Oh yeah, the honky.
Yeah, the honky. I was like, wow.
This movie had everything.
It really does. It has cultural insensitivity. It is 1983 though, so I mean, I'm partially giving it a pass on the cultural insensitivity because nobody was speaking up for minorities at that point. It was just assumed you could abuse them and everybody was gonna laugh and it was fine. But the movie is nonsensical. It is, and there are huge parts of the movie. Like, I don't know if you noticed this, but after they revamp the cabs and the office, Harold and the dispatcher are apparently in a relationship now. That's why there are candles on the table in the office. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? But you never actually see anything. None of it makes sense. None of it makes sense.
And in one of the posters, Harold and the dispatcher are holding each other.
Yeah. But you see none of that relationship.
None of that.
You never actually see them together. Like standing together, holding hands, hugging, nothing. So I was like, what? Why even say it? None of this makes sense. None of it makes sense. So, I mean, if you're into that, by all means, feel free to watch it, but skip it. Skip it if you like just a semblance of a cohesive story. Like it doesn't have to be a good story, but just any story. One cohesive story from start to finish of a movie. This movie doesn't have that. It does have Mr. T though, so I mean, there's that. And Irene Cara, I love her.
So you're saying skip it.
I'm saying skip it. You?
All right. My score. I liked it. But nostalgia played a huge part. Roger Ebert was right. DC Cab, and I just wrote down his thing here by Roger Ebert. DC Cab is not an entirely bad movie. It has its moments, but if it had used more actual taxi riding incidents and more recognizable driver types, it could have been a little masterpiece. I agree with that. Too many zany parts, meaning these bigger than life moments or over the top plot points like the violin, the kidnapping, the impersonation of doctors, the muggers. If it concentrated on the cabbies and those stories, this could have been a comedy. This could have been a great comedy. Keep the boobies, keep the politically correctness. Fuck it, it's 1983. Who gives a shit? I know you need the violin to get Myrna leaving and stealing from Harold. I know you need it to get Albert to offer his money to have this loyalty. So when he is kidnapped, they all feel sense to help him and save him. But you could have concentrated on more craziness from the drivers and end just with the mugger at the end of the movie. Make this a serious problem throughout with this mugger, and the movie ends with them doing this. You didn't need a $500,000 violin reward and kidnapping with millions of dollars in ransom. It's so stupid. This is not an isolated problem to this movie. This was a running theme in a lot of 80s and 90s that made these movies more zany and silly. But all that aside, my memory of watching DC Cab came flooding back to me as soon as I started watching it with that chase game and the Mission Impossible music playing, and I found myself giggling quite often. The cast is not full of stellar actors. It is, however, full of some seasoned TV veterans and funny comedians. It had boobies. It made me laugh at stuff that would make a woke person's head explode. It had way too much going on, but it had heart. Like it tried. It had a story that branched out so many times it finally came to an end that made sense for the stupidity that it had become. Except for that fucking marching band. I was like, what the fuck is this?
It was the parade.
The parade, yeah. I'm like, okay. Tyrone and Dell being standout comic relief in a comedy movie. Harold and Albert and Ophelia and Miriam bringing a semblance of realism in such an absurd movie, such a chaotic movie. If you remember like a DC Cab, you probably still will. If you're that type of person.
If you're that type of person.
It doesn't warrant a purchase, but for nostalgia and a true hour and 39 minutes of pure zany 80s comedy, montage, boobies, off-color language. It's worth a rental. And it has Mr. T. Come on.
I love Mr. T. Okay.
I
I
pity the
love him.
fool.
That's right. That's right.
Oh.
Yeah. God bless. I rented this movie and I'm not mad about it, but I'm kind of mad about it because it's like you said, and it's like Ebert said, there's a good movie in here somewhere.
There was, yes, a very good movie somewhere in there.
They just kept throwing shit at the audience and it clouded it. And I'm like, guys, you could have made a great movie. The fuck is this?
Yeah, something. Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad because
Yeah.
it could have very easily, just with some tweaks, become like a definite buy and
A
put in
little
your
editing,
collection.
like script editing. It should have it never should have hit this because I feel like they just kept trying to like shove more crazy in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we got it. In the first 5 minutes of the movie, we got how fucking crazy everybody is. You don't need to push it all the way in. Like, we get it. So that was my biggest frustration with this movie.
All right, let's move on to some DC Cab trivia. There wasn't a ton, so there's not a lot here.
Understandably.
So you could start.
Thanks. During principal photography in Washington, D.C., Mr. T spent some of his free time off the set visiting correctional facilities and children's hospitals. That is very on brand for Mr. T.
Yeah, I forget how into helping people he was.
He was super involved in the community and rehabilitation, and he was all like, you can do better with your life. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Internationally, the film was a major hit. It was one of Poland's highest grossing comedies of all time. Yeah. And won Best Comedic Picture in Turkey. Apparently, it made only $16 million here, but apparently internationally it did even better. That's
Amazing.
Yeah.
Good for DC Cab. Jim Carrey auditioned for the film. Director Joel Schumacher turned him down because he felt Carrey was too talented to be in an ensemble. Schumacher would later work with Carrey on Batman Forever.
That sounds kind of like no, you're way too
yeah, no, it's you're too smart.
Yeah, you're way too good for this movie.
You're too pretty for this.
In the original shot ending, Irene Cara sang the song The Dream at the White House, where she mentions to Tyrone she was to perform early in the film, and arranges for all the cab drivers to be there to celebrate as a reward for their heroics. This was replaced with the parade scene after the original cut was shown to test audiences, and may explain why the Barbarian brothers no longer have the beards their characters wore throughout the film. But poster and album artwork and publicity shots show Cara singing in a red sparkly dress, which was from the White House scene and not featured in the film.
I was wondering where that scene went.
Yeah.
The movie was controversial when first released, as it had garnered an R rating in the USA, and Mr. T was at the time of popular appeal among children and young persons. Yeah, the children's loved Mr. T.
Oh yeah, I loved Mr. T. He had that cartoon too, and
yeah.
The make of the model of the old rundown DC cab company are the yellow taxi cab cars. Were actually 1962 checker taxi cabs. When they got them fixed up or used other cars, they look great.
They looked amazing.
Those are great looking cab cars.
That's what I always think of when I think of a cab.
Yeah.
Charlie Barnett was an up-and-coming NYC stand-up from the Bronx when cast in this film. Barnett is best known for his recurring role on Miami Vice. He infamously lost a spot on Saturday Night Live, 1975, to Eddie Murphy. Man, I'd be telling that story till the day I died. I was almost on Saturday Night Live. Fucking Eddie Murphy.
Because you can't have two black people on
correct.
Saturday Night Live in the early 80s.
Correct, my friend. You get one token minority.
You could tell Charlie Barnett probably would have done very well on. He had a very crazy sense about him. So yeah, I think he could have done really good on SNL. The film song, The Dream, Hold On to Your Dream, sung by Irene Cara, was the highest ranking track from the movie soundtrack, peaking at number 37 spot in the Billboard Hot 100 in February of 1984.
Interesting. I did enjoy the soundtrack. Adam Baldwin and Gary Busey would both later appear in Predator 2, 1990. Now I
I
want to watch
forgot
Predator 2.
Crazy Barry Busey was even in Predator 2. And I forgot Adam Baldwin was in it too.
I forgot
Yes.
he was in it.
Now I want to watch Predator 2. Gary
happens
Busey hunting a predator.
Every week. Every
Oh.
week we hear some like random and we're like, we should watch that.
We should watch that. Yep. I'm not embarrassed about anything I've done, director Joel Schumacher said in 1993 interview. Oh, I was going to say Batman and Robin, but this was a 1993 interview. When I began directing, I only had two choices, leave or get better. Someone said to me, I can't believe you did DC Cab. Well, let me tell you something. I needed the job. I was not sitting at home thinking, should I do DC Cab with Mr. T or Out of Africa with Meryl Streep and what's his name? Bob. I can't remember who that was. That was Robert Redford. Robert
Yeah.
Redford, yeah. So yeah, so it's not like they were offering him these awesome movies, which makes sense. That's good. It's a good, yeah.
John Deal, who played the head kidnapper, would go on to appear in many other Joel Schumacher films, including Falling Down, 1993, The Client, 1994, and A Time to Kill, 1996.
And when I read this, I'm like, oh, that's where I know he's been in a ton of movies. The head kidnapper. I love Falling Down. I love The Client, and I love The Time to Kill. Those are three fantastic movies.
Wow.
One of two early 1980 movies where Mr. T had a prominent role in a motion picture in both the film and its marketing. The other, of course, was Rocky III, 1982. Awesome movie. Awesome movie.
It has been forever since I've watched
I have
Rocky
not
III.
seen that in a long time.
Same.
I don't know who's the bigger villain because you always like Apollo Creed. Apollo Creed was awesome, even though they fought. But the best villains, I don't know if it's Mr. T or Ivan Drago, Dolph Lundgren. Those were two great villains.
Yeah, you know what we should do? We should have a Rocky marathon.
We should do a Rocky marathon and do all.
Watch all the Rockies and then decide once and for all who is the greatest villain. The film has become a cult classic despite its negative reviews, which included Siskel and Ebert, amongst others, and was a box office success. There's no accounting for taste.
There you go. Albert Hockenberry's father served with Harold in the Vietnam War. Adam Baldwin later played a Marine in Full Metal Jacket, 1987. I love Full Metal Jacket. That's a great movie, too.
Honestly, it's been forever since I've watched that, too.
I'm just all I can really I remember the part with the drill sergeant.
Yeah.
And when they go, I don't remember a lot because I know it's all about training for half the movie, and then the other half is about being in Vietnam. I do not remember a lot about the Vietnam part.
Neither do I. I don't remember about a lot of the movie, but I remember watching it. It was so long ago, like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
In his book Brat, an 80s story, Andrew McCarthy stated that he auditioned for this film for director Joel Schumacher and didn't think much of it because he was not called back. But he had made a good impression to Schumacher, who remembered his audition and offered the part of Kevin in St. Elmo's Fire to him. About a year later, which surprised McCarthy and gladly accepted. 100% good job, Andrew McCarthy. One of my favorite movies of all time.
We've talked about doing this movie too.
Yeah.
There's 8 movies that we just talked about here that we could do.
We're gonna have this podcast forever.
I have not seen St. Elmo's Fire in a long time. Whenever the song comes on the radio, yes, I want to watch it.
It's only been a couple years for me since I've last seen it. Because it's one of those movies that whenever it was on TV, I was like, yes, St. Elmo's Fire. And I would watch it. So I think the last time I saw it was like 3 years ago.
All right. So that is it for DC Cab. We are going to move on to our second movie of our drive-in special. And it is Death Wish 2, which means first we are going to preview it. And oh, crap. I have to bring it up.
It's okay. We
should be right here. Thank God. All right. So let's preview Death Wish 2. Now we are going to take a look at our second movie, Death Wish 2. Now we saw Death Wish. I can't remember. What did you say? How did you rate Death Wish?
I think I rated it like a Rent It, if I'm
or
not
Rent It.
mistaken. I think it was a Rent It.
It was a lot better than I thought it was going to
It,
be.
yeah, I
Yeah.
remember liking it, and there were some
Yeah.
things where I was like, I think this is ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
But it's a disgruntled man running around shooting everybody with one hand. Just all of a sudden, he goes from being kind of anti-gun to I'm just gonna blow everybody's brains out, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So
Like his neighbor was like Charlton Heston, and he joined the NRA, and
yes, and he started screaming about his Second Amendment rights from the rooftops.
yeah. All right. Well, okay. Again, I said that this. It looked like we might have made a mistake on these two movies, and it wasn't just DC Cab that I was looking at. That looked like it might be a mistake. This movie looks well. Let's take a look at it. Let's start with the box office.
Yes, let's.
With a budget of $8 million, this
Mhm.
it has there's a little confusion online. Some say it made 16 million, some say it actually made 29 million. Either way, again with marketing in 82, the movie made money.
Yeah.
And yeah, so of note, it opened in limited release. By its third week, it had reached number 3 in only having 377 theaters. In fact, it had the lowest theater count of all the top 10 films, and it remained in theaters for 45 weeks.
Okay.
So, again, this drive-in one, the movies didn't make a ton of money, but they did okay. Tale of the Tape. Released on February 19th, 1987. It is an action crime 87. No.
No.
1982. I did this last week too. It's 1982. It is rated R and comes in at an hour and 33 minutes.
Okay, good time. Good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he starts vigilantism pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taglines. First his wife, now his daughter. It's time to even the score.
Okay, not bad. That's actually a pretty good tagline.
He wants the filth off the streets. If the police can't do it, he will. His way.
Too many words.
He's planning to clean up the city his way.
Much better.
He's a one-man judge, jury, and executioner.
Perfect.
He has decided to clean up the city his way.
That's just different punctuation.
Yep. Bronson's loose again in Death Wish 2.
No.
When murder and rape invade your home and the cops can't stop it, this man will. His way.
That's the shittiest tagline ever.
Synopsis. Oops. Relocating to Los Angeles from New York City, vigilante Paul Kersey, Charles Bronson, wants to start a safer life for himself and his adult daughter, Carol, played by Robin Sherwood, who was raped years earlier and still suffers psychologically from the attack. But trouble finds Kersey. His house cleaner, Rosario, played by Silvana Gallardo, and Carol are both gang raped. She gets raped again in Kersey's home by a gang of thugs, and Rosario dies. Oh. Kersey hits the streets hunting down the criminals, refusing to stop until L.A. is saved. Oh, good luck, Kersey. Fucking L.A. All right. And here is the poster. I did not like this poster at all.
No, this is terrible.
It says up top, Bronson's loose again in Death Wish 2. When murder and rape invade your home and the cops can't stop it, this man will his way. They took all the crappiest things we saw and said and put it right on this poster. And it's a picture of him. Now, here's a couple international ones. The one on the left here, he's planning to clean up the city his way, and he's rolling it like plans because he was an architect.
Yeah.
And it's just a city of LA with a gun on it and the lights coming out of the plans. That's a little better.
I like that one better.
And the other one is just a kind of a drawn picture of him, and it looks awkward with the window smashing and the guys attacking, and it's obviously,
I don't
guessing
know.
Spanish.
No, that's Italian.
That's Italian. Oh, della notte numero 2. I don't know Italian. Not even close.
I'm going to look up that word. I want to know what they call him.
It's numero two.
Yes, we get that, but it's the something of the night.
While you're
Jeez.
looking that up, I just wanted to go over quickly. Okay, so Brian Garfield, the author of the original Death Wish novel, was so unhappy with the film version that he wrote his own sequel, Death Sentence. Great movie with Kevin Bacon. I'm pretty sure he's pissed off at that one too. They made a hero out of him, Garfield said. I thought I'd shown that he'd become a very sick man. The idea to produce a sequel to Death Wish originated with producers Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, owners of Canon Films. They reportedly announced their plans to do so prior to actually securing the rights to the franchise. Dino De Laurentiis, co-producer of the original film, threatened them with a lawsuit. Now, in 1980, Canon briefly hired Garfield to write an adaptation of a sequel to Death Wish of Death Sentence. However, Golan and Globus did not want to use Garfield's book, preferring the original story by David Engelbeck. After they purchased the rights to the first film from De Laurentiis, they purchased the rights to the characters of the novels from Garfield, meaning they could make a sequel without adapting the original novels. Also, Bronson was offered $1.5 million to reprise the role. Jill Ireland was cast in the film because Bronson, her husband, insisted on it. He did that for a lot of movies. That's, I think, how she got work. He just said she's going to be which was kind of cool because he made all his love interests his wife.
No, that's lovely.
Yeah.
It's also just a classic story of Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's just nepotism.
And if we remember from the first movie, he didn't want her to be in that movie because he didn't want his wife being smacked around and humiliated.
Also, I have the translation. It's the phrase translates to the vigilante of the night, number 2.
Okay. All right.
So that word giustiziere means vigilante.
Oh, there we go. And now you know. Oh, I should have that NBC thing on here.
You should.
Yeah, I should have that. I'm going to put that on here.
Is that copyrighted? Like, are we going to be able to use that?
That one I think is okay. I know we can't play music anymore because
Yeah.
YouTube just nabs us every time, which is too bad. All right, let's go to Rotten Tomatoes. Here we go. 36. Oh, this isn't right. Oh, right.
I was going to say,
'cause
that
I mixed
seems a
them up.
little high.
Yeah, it seems a little high for Death Wish 2. 70 some odd percent. All right, here we go. This is better. All right. 18 critics reviews. This movie comes in at 33%.
Oof.
Better than DC Cab.
True.
5,000 audience reviews comes in at 44%. Not as good as DC Cab.
No.
All right, well, let's start with the fresh, and you may start.
Once you appreciate how comically lurid Death Wish 2 is, you can relax and enjoy it for what it is. It's a Marvel comic with someone to turn the pages for you. Bruce McCabe, Boston Globe.
A strong, visceral experience that is not always comfortable to watch, but pleasing to watch as the bad guys get what's coming to them. Kevin Carr, 7mm Pictures, 5 out of 3. 3 out of 5 out of 3. 3 out of 5.
I didn't even realize you had said 5.
Excuse my dyslexia.
Classic. Cole Smithy. ColeSmithy.com, 3 out of 5.
This is a paid reviewer. Our reviews aren't even on here. This guy just writes classic. An unnecessary sequel, the first of too many. Steve Crum, Kansas City, Kansan, 3 out of 5. That's a good review.
That is actually a good review.
All right, Rotten. People that did not like this movie really did not like this movie.
The language is filthy, the film is simple-minded, and Bronson's character is as despicable as those he murders. TV Guide, 0 out of 4. Those zeros always hit different.
Yeah. Even more foolish, more tacky, and more self-righteously inhumane than the 1974 melodrama of which it has been spun by the none too nimble fingers of Michael Winner. Vincent Canby, New York Times, 1 out of 5.
That was harsh. All the blood and none of the brains. Scott Weinberg, eFilmCritic.com, 2 out of 5.
The results are every bit as revolting as in the original 1974 jackpot fantasy. Variety staff, Variety.
Wow. While the first film convinced me of Bronson's need for vengeance, this one is just a series of dumb killings. Roger Ebert, Chicago Sun-Times, 0 out of 4.
I don't think I've ever seen Roger Ebert
No,
give a
he's
0 out of
never
4
given
before.
a 0 out of 4. Or at least for the movies we've watched. We'll
Yeah.
find out.
IMDb, 18,000 user ratings, comes in at 6 out of 10. So a little better.
Oh, yeah.
All right, go ahead.
A terrific, rip-roaring, all guns blazing sequel. 10 out of 10, green 515.
That's what my grandpa would say. Despite being hard to watch at times, my personal favorite of the series. 9 out of 10, Bee Kite.
Interesting. May cause a desire to take a shower, and that's the point. 8 out of 10, Brant Sponseller.
Starting to wonder about this movie.
Yeah.
Death Wish 2 is a gut-wrenching, stomach-turning, yet immorally thrilling sequel. I think they meant morally, because immorally is...
No, immorally means there are no morals. Which
no morally and thrilling?
I'm
Yep.
getting the feel
Yeah.
that they're not really sensitive to people in this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. 7 out of 10, part-time critic.
Who's the man? Charlie Bronson's demand. 6 out of 10, D-Day 65.
Where the series dipped, 5 out of 10, P. James 10.
Scuttling around in the darkest corners of my brain like a diseased rodent. It's Death Wish 2. 4 out of 10, DJ Jimmy Vespa.
If Death Wish leaned towards advocating vigilantism, Death Wish 2 dives headfirst and drowns in it. 3 out of 10. Ionic Breeze Machine?
Yeah. Brain dead sequel that insults its predecessor. 2 out of 10, Coffee in the Clink.
All right, we'll take turns because, yeah, there's a few of these ones. There was a lot of ones. A disgusting piece of garbage. Preppy 3.
Nihilistic garbage. McFrog.
Why, oh why? John Felon 911.
Wish I never saw this. Smart GGGG.
Does anyone care about women? Caterwalls.
Music ruins this one. Thomas Cole.
Out of all the ones being garbage, nihilistic, does anyone care about women? And then this guy, the music kind of sucked in this movie. Ruined the whole thing for me.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah. All right. Well, we took a look at everything from different posters, and we even took a look at some Italian and
yeah,
box office. Let's take a look at the trailer and then make our predictions. Shout Factory is awesome.
It happened once before.
Some muggers followed my wife and daughter home from the market.
It's about to happen again.
The police there got a very good description of the muggers, too. But it didn't do any good.
We do what we can.
And so does he.
Is this your daughter, Mr. Kersey? Mr. Kersey, is that Carol?
When murder and rape are the crimes, Bronson is the only punishment. Charles Bronson, Death Wish 2.
There's something else you should know, sir. Paul Kersey now lives in Los Angeles.
Oh, my God.
Now you tell me there's a vigilante out there. You believe in Jesus? Yes, I do. Well, you're going to meet him.
He killed 9 people in New York City 4 years ago. The people he killed were muggers. He became a hero.
What do he look like?
He was a very good citizen, that's what he was. That guy saved our lives, damn it. Where the hell were you guys, giving out parking tickets?
When violence rules the city, when the police can't stop it, one man will, his way.
Watch out!
Charles Bronson.
Goodbye.
awesome.
Death Wish 2, he's doing it for you. That's a fucking tagline.
Yeah. And they got that part right. They ruined their poster though.
Yeah.
What's your prediction?
I think I'm gonna have a love-hate relationship with this. Because as I felt with Death Wish, I'm all in for vigilante movies, and I love ridiculous violence that don't make no sense. I love it. However, from the reviews, I'm a little concerned about how they treat the gang raping of his daughter, who's already been super traumatized in the first movie.
Yeah.
So why do we have to re-traumatize her? I already have an issue with that. So it'll be interesting to see how much of an issue that really pops up while I watch this movie. So I have a feeling I'm going to have a love-hate relationship with it.
You could have had a neighbor that you're really friendly with and their daughter or the wife or
Like
I
somebody
mean,
else. Like leave the daughter
poor
alone.
daughter.
Let her
Jesus
live in New
Christ.
England in a cute little seaside cottage. Like why you gotta redo this?
Yeah, I should just left her in that institution.
Yeah.
This looks like complete exploitive. Well, it's not. It's like Grindhouse. It looks very. I noticed Lawrence Fishburne there.
Yes. He is in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I have not. I'm pretty sure unless I watch it and realize I remember it, but
Yeah.
there's nothing here that says I've seen this. I've seen 3 and 4.
Yeah.
I know I have multiple times. Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's just see how. Like it could be garbage, like it could be like, but it could be like that Grindhouse, but it
Yeah.
could still be a lot of fun. Looks like he carries around like the same weapon and
Yeah, he's still doing the one-handed shooting
yeah,
and the bullets that defy physics because they never actually hit him. Like I'm cool with it. That part. I want to see how they handle the incident that spurs him on
yeah,
into his vigilantism in LA. And I want to see how I have a feeling I'm going to hate it. I already hate it on principle that they're doing this to the daughter again. I'm like, let her live. Let her have her life. You want to give him a new girlfriend who gets like attacked, but why does it always have to be rape? Can't you just be mugged and beaten? Still traumatizing, still terrible.
yeah.
Why does it have to be rape? Like why you got to go so intense?
Well, just for those listening, I have not seen this in a long time. Number 3 drops the rape, and
Thank
it's more
God.
of a gang terrorizing the Bronx or something like that, and
Okay.
his old Vietnam buddy, and they decide to like go PTSD and have
Go
a
PTSD.
and just start shooting everyone with their AK-47, whatever the fuck they used in Vietnam. But yeah, well, I don't know. Well, let's see. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how this all plays out
Yeah.
because everything else looks fine.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like it has every cliche, every crappy action.
Over the top vigilantism,
Yeah, which is
never
great.
ending ammunition,
Yeah,
running around but not really hiding it, but kind of hiding it. Like I'm down for all of that.
yeah. The bad language, like
Yes.
the language that was written by the white man and
Yeah.
how the black man would sound to the white man, which is fantastic. I'm sure that's all going to be in there.
Oh, 100%.
All right.
100%.
Well, we are going to go watch Death Wish 2. Yeah, and then when we come back, we are going to review it.
Mhm.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And now, on with the show.
You're muted, my friend.
Damn it. Did you watch Death Wish 2?
I did.
What's your initial thoughts?
The violence was nice. Like the shooting and the running and the beating, cool. I don't like the violence against the women in the beginning. I don't need to see that much. We don't need that much. Also, Charles Bronson, I know you're supposed to be a stone cold hard killer, um, but why are you showing zero emotion? Did not sell his because at least in the first one he had some like a little bit of like facial expression that showed his anger and his disbelief and his trauma, and then it led to him going on a killing spree. In this one, he's just like, "Okay, okay, okay, go shoot people now." And I was like, "What? I don't what? This is not okay." And also the detective from New York.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So I have mixed feelings about this one. A lot of mostly not good feelings, but there are some mixed feelings. What about you?
Death Wish was way better.
Yeah.
I think I like 3 better. This wasn't bad. I mean, I don't know. I didn't get into it as much. It didn't have that 70s New York feel. I know it's 1982 in this movie, but it was
In
kind of
LA.
in LA, and it was trying to be like the first one, but trying to really distinguish itself. It failed. It wasn't like horrible. The only way I could describe it is like halfway through this movie, I was like, why am I watching this when I can watch Death Wish 1?
I mean, same.
Yeah.
'Cause at least it all felt really weird because like
Yeah.
the first Death Wish, something happens, he gets spurned into action. And then you see the action, which is ridiculous, yes, but it's entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
This one, something happens and there is no spurning into action. It's just, "Okay, cool. I'll see you tomorrow."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
And
what? Yeah.
because like we weren't I wasn't even born. You weren't even born when Death Wish came out. But it had better nostalgia, had better dialogue, had better stereotypes,
It
better
did
use
have
of
better
the
stereotypes.
better use of the news and the public perception. This movie wasn't a comment on street crime or big city chaos or the continuing moral degradation of society that Death Wish truly wanted to portray or present. Death Wish 2 was
Yeah.
a straight up revenge flick, I think.
It was. It was definitely revenge and not necessarily vigilantism.
Yeah.
Because he very much went just after the guys who killed his housekeeper and
Yeah.
eventually his daughter, who raped and killed his and that really I'm like, "Why you gotta bring the daughter into this?
Yeah,
Why
poor
you gotta
daughter. Like, what the fuck?
The poor girl barely spoke, has
Yeah.
barely spoken for the last 2 years. I also wanna know where her husband went, like, was there a divorce? Did they get
He's out of
annulled?
there.
Like, what happened? He was gone. Um, she's still in an institution. Like,
Yeah.
she's still a patient,
Yep.
and you're gonna do her like that?
Yeah.
That's dirty. I don't like that.
I like some of the things the movie did, but like the use of the detective in New York going to LA, that was ridiculous. What
That
the
was so
fuck?
and he still has the same allergies.
And he had the same fucking suit from 8 years ago.
It was so,
Excuse
like,
me.
don't get me wrong, like, I understand why, in theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, that could have been a great plot, but he's sniffling, he's sneezing, he's coughing, and he's got those fucking opera binoculars, and I'm just like, "I can't take you seriously.
Yeah.
I can't take you
Apparently,
seriously."
I don't think I put it in the actual trivia. Because he had a cold in Death Wish 1. He
Yeah.
actually, when he got out to LA, he caught another cold. So the sniffling wasn't on purpose in the first Death Wish, and it wasn't on purpose for the second Death Wish.
That just made me love him.
Yeah,
'Cause
drink
I
some
thought it was one of
orange
those
juice, dude.
weird actor choices, but I'm like, "Dude,
No.
are you telling me there was no cold medicine in, like,
He
1981 when you filmed
just got
this?"
sick.
He just kept getting sick. It's amazing.
All right, let's go over this movie. And also, first, I'm a giant fan of Led Zeppelin. Owned all the CDs, tracked
Mm.
a few records, and Jimmy Page did the soundtrack for this movie.
Yep.
We'll get to why in the trivia, but while it was cool in parts, but for the most part, It seemed out of place, or it seemed too much.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about it.
No, I missed the orchestra with the groovy
Yeah.
70s soundtrack. This was all electric guitar. If it was used like Jaws, like when Paul Kersey was stalking bad guys, that would have been cool. But it
Yeah.
was used for almost everything. There was some orchestra in there, but mostly Jimmy Page's electric guitar. Whatever.
Which, I mean, Jimmy Page, yay, but
Yeah, but too much.
it
All
just
right.
didn't feel right.
So, roughly 8 years since the events of the first film, Paul Kersey has managed to recover from his shattered life and moved on, and is now living in Los Angeles and working as a freelance architect. So, still an architect, still an NRA
Mhm.
member, I'm assuming.
Well, I mean, he hides his gun, so
Oh, maybe not an NRA card carrier member. No.
yeah.
One of his clients is a close friend who owns a radio station for whom he is designing a new building, and he is dating one of its reporters, Jerry Nichols. Okay, I don't want to speak ill will of the dead, but I'm starting to think that Jill Ireland wasn't that great of an actor. Just saying.
What makes you say that?
I don't know. Maybe her husband forced
Gets her
production
every
companies.
job.
Yeah, gets her every job. They go to pick up Paul's daughter, Carol, from the mental hospital. We need
Mm.
more of these mental hospitals.
They are so pretty.
I was downtown where I live here. These people should be locked up. A lot of these people should. I was in Walmart, and a lot of those people should be locked up.
I mean, but that's Walmart. That's just Walmart everywhere, no matter where you go. If there's
I
a Walmart.
usually order my stuff from different places. I don't like going grocery shopping, and I went grocery shopping on my own or whatever, and having to be amongst those people, I was so fucking angry. I'm like, why am I with you? You people are insane and gross and ugh.
I feel that way about most people. Like during the pandemic, I was happier than a pig in shit.
Yeah, just being at home.
Yeah, and nobody expected me to go out. Nobody asked me to go anywhere, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's order everything to the house."
They spend the afternoon at a fairground where Paul's wallet is stolen by a gang consisting of Nirvana, Punk Cut, Stomper, Cutter, and Jiver. I do like the names. This was, of course, written by a hyper 10-year-old boy in grade 5 with an overactive imagination. No, this was written by a guy who had a hyper 10-year-old boy in grade 5 with an overactive imagination, and just asked the kids, what would you call these people? And he came up with Punk Cut, Cutter, Jiver. The gang splits up when Paul chases them. He pursues Jiver, whom he corners in an alley. When Jiver says that he does not have the wallet, Paul lets him go. The gang find Paul home, a dress in his wallet, and breaks into the house. They restrain Rosario, Paul's housekeeper, and begin taking turns raping her. For those listening, it is a very uncomfortable scene. A little more than the first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very long.
Yeah, and it is long.
Intercut with other scenes, but it seems to go on for a very long time.
Yeah. It's not the it's weird saying it's not the worst I've seen. Like over the years, it's gotten way worse. But still, if you're like gonna watch it, it's still uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable, and it's very I could see people being either re-traumatized by it or just like not want like I was super uncomfortable during that part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super uncomfortable.
And as in all, they're supposed to be uncomfortable. They're supposed to make you feel sick and rage. It is a plot device meant not only to move the story, but stir a wide range of emotions and feelings and stress into the audience. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It
there
always
are
works. Like it
Yeah.
always makes people uncomfortable, but sometimes it's too much.
Yeah, there's a way to film an attack scene
Yeah.
that is not so graphic and not so explicit. There's a way to do it.
Yep.
And the methods were there in the 80s. So it's a little frustrating to see this because you're like you're rage baiting, but you're doing it with women and their bodies. And I'm
Yeah.
just like there's a way to get the rage from your audience without exploiting these women.
Yeah.
It's possible.
And I don't think directors they don't set out to like make this like a high point or go, hey, look how cool this is. But they do it either to evoke emotions or they're doing it as shock. That it's such a horrendous act, and for that fact, the movie does work. I mean, you don't just dislike these guys, you absolutely hate, like, they are horrendous people. They
Yeah.
that part gets by. But yeah, because there are way easier ways to get the audience to dislike a character. He wanted you to despise them to the point where you're cheering for a hero and killing them, which by definition should be considered wrong. But I love heroes killing people.
I'm kind of okay with a lot of vigilantism.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Vigilantism's cool. Come on, let's be honest.
I mean, am I going to go out there randomly killing people? I will never admit to that.
Not until I get my gun. But yes. Yes, poor Rosario. When Paul arrives home with his daughter, he is beaten unconscious. Rosario tries to call the police, but Nirvana kills her with the crowbar. They kidnap Carol and take her to their hideout where a gang member rapes her. This poor chick, Jesus Christ. I'm sitting there going, for fuck. Different actors, but it's the same character. You're like, hasn't this woman suffered enough? Like, what?
Honestly, I would have much preferred it if they just killed her
Killed
at
her.
the apartment.
Yeah. And we'll get to that in the trivia too. Yeah. Yeah, because she's just started, like, she's smiling, she's asking for food.
Yeah, she's just started speaking a little more regularly.
Yeah.
She's got day trips out of the treatment center. Like, she's finally starting to kind of open up a little bit.
Yeah.
Come closer to normalcy, and then this happens.
Yeah.
And that just, it made me so angry. I'm like, you didn't have to do that to her.
No.
You didn't have, and I think I would have been, this is so weird to say, but I think I would have been more okay.
Yes, if they didn't rape her. Yeah.
If they didn't, well, no, they didn't need to. They
No.
could have just killed her. And they could have done it off scene. Like, it didn't have to be super graphic, but especially if you watch the first movie and then you watch the second, you're just like, God, you don't have to.
No.
But I think if Paul Kersey had more rage,
Yeah.
then the violence that's shown to us would have seemed more justified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he reacts to Rosaria's death and Carol's death and their rapes like someone just told him, "You're out of milk."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay, I'll hit the store." Like, it was so jarring, and I think that's why I really hated that violence towards both of them, 'cause I'm
Yeah.
like, the actions are justified, like, the vengeance is justified.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like
It was earned.
it was earned, you
Yeah.
know? It was soon.
Because in the first one, there wasn't, like, a ton, but it was there. Like, he was mad.
Struggles.
Yeah.
He struggles because he's like, the cops are supposed to be keeping us safe and they can't find these guys. And, you know, it gets to a point where he's like, well, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
This
this-
one, you don't see any, like, it's nothing.
No.
Nothing in his eyes either. Give me some eye acting, something. But
I
anyways,
think he might have been just doing this one for the money.
God, I
Carol
hope so.
attempts to escape by running through a plate glass window and falls onto an iron fence and dies. Paul later refuses to help the police identify the muggers. Yeah, don't worry, dear listener. He doesn't have Alzheimer's. He's got a plan.
Yes, he does have a
for
plan.
vengeance. I should have did the trailer for this one. And again, yeah, what a ship character arc for this character. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. After Carol's funeral, he takes his handgun to a low-rent inner-city hotel as a base of operations. Not before going to the cab for the weekend and chop some wood. We do get
Yeah.
that. That's
He
your
Yeah, he waited for the funeral, then he went, to the cabin.
Yeah.
Chopped a lot of wood. Apparently, that's where he made the decision, to go back to his vigilante ways.
Yeah, chop some wood, and that was enough grieving.
That was it. That was all it took.
Although, to be fair, he didn't mourn a whole lot when his wife died.
But he struggled.
He did struggle, but
There was
Paul
a struggle.
Kersey's he's all business.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But I'm like, give me some struggle because your daughter, who's been through the ringer so many fucking times,
Yeah.
now she's dead. Give me a little something. Give me a tear.
No, you don't want
What's
to cry
here
over
at her
spilled milk.
funeral?
Yeah, not
Nobody's
even a tear.
Not even a tear at the funeral. He didn't
No.
even really look sad at the funeral. He was just like the girlfriend Jerry is all like, "Do you want to? No, I'm cool, thanks."
Yeah, I
Like
gotta get
that's
to
it.
some killing. Um, yeah, because this is like I think this is what they meant by the good old days. They don't or they don't make them like that. They used to, and it was better when I was a kid because back in the day, it seemed to be pretty easy to be a vigilante.
Apparently.
Not
Well,
just a
there was also
vigilante, serial killer, bank robber. Nowadays, forget about it.
That's because
Inter
everything's digital now, and there's
internet
CCTV
cameras,
everywhere.
yeah, facial recognition. It's just one
It's
giant
so much
headache.
harder to hide now. I mean, back then you could just be like, "Here's my social security or my SIN," which was just a piece of paper.
Yeah. Can't even clean up your own streets like our forefathers fought for. We didn't beat the Nazis to become woke. We beat the Nazis to roam the streets and deliver homemade justice. That's what I'm just saying. I forgot what I was talking about. Where are we?
I feel like you lost the point of World War II.
Yeah.
FYI.
Has LA always looked like a shithole in the 80s? Or was this Hollywood? Like Hollywood's let's make it look really bad.
No, there are certain parts of LA that really, really, really look like a shithole.
Yeah.
And like
I'm
there's a
sure they're
reason
beautiful parts.
there's
Even
a
back
reason
then.
why there's
Yeah.
a part of LA that's literally called Skid Row. And
Yeah.
still to this day
Yeah.
is not the prettiest. Although you go like a block north and you're into like multi-million-dollar houses. It's the most fucked up thing.
The next evening, he follows Stomper into an abandoned building as a drug deal is about to be made. This was just an innumerous amount of rats.
So many fucking rats, and none of them ran when he walked in.
No, like they didn't give a shit. Like Stephen King's Graveyard Shift amount of rats.
Yeah.
They didn't give a fuck.
No, man, he's just walking right through them.
And they
they're like,
weren't
"Hey, buddy."
white lab rats. These were brown
Sewer rats.
sewer rats.
Yep.
Ugh, this was gross.
It was so incredibly gross. And I'm like, I understand you probably put food down so that the rats stay there as
Yeah.
he's walking through them. But I'm like, some of them should have scattered.
Yeah, not
Some
one.
of them. Nope, none of them scattered.
I think
I'll
I
just
saw
tell you.
one give Charles Bronson the finger. And not one actor screamed like a schoolgirl. I would have.
Of course you would have.
And how did that rat get on top of that lampshade?
Don't ask questions.
Multiple times. Because between cuts, it was there, it wasn't there, it was there. This was some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Splinter shit rat. Fucking, I could not have done this scene. Nope.
I would not have wanted to.
Breaking into the business or not. And we get the do you believe in Jesus? Well, you're going to meet him because Paul shoots a dealer and orders the others out before killing Stomper. The following night, he hears screams from a couple being assaulted in a parking garage by 4 muggers, which includes Jiver. Paul kills 2 rapists and wounds Jiver. Paul then follows Jiver's blood trail into the abandoned warehouse and kills him. Yeah, I guess criminals in the 80s, they just like their rape. I don't know.
There's a lot of rape.
Say this.
Like we don't need that shit. We already know it runs rampant and it's super common. And
Yeah,
it's
just
really
some
fucking annoying. Like you don't
violent
have to-
assault. You didn't have to keep going
Yeah.
there.
It's a lot. And also like keep tearing open people's shirts and it's just
I love seeing boobies in movies. I do
Yeah.
not like seeing boobies this way. It
No.
feels gross. I don't. It's like it's a waste of a booby shot. I
It's
feel icky.
yeah. God damn it. It's
I
always
don't want to
terrible
see
when
your
the boobies
boobies
make you
that
feel
way.
icky.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was I was not like I get it. Ooh, they're terrible people and this is
Yeah.
the worst crime. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. You don't have to use it as your only proof that these people are terrible. Like there are a million other things that they could do to be terrible. You don't have to go
Yeah.
around raping every woman who shows up on screen.
I do like how he doesn't even tell the bad guys why he's doing it, or if he doesn't ask them if they remember him or
Yeah.
if they remember
He
killing
just
his
starts
daughter.
shooting.
No, just straight to the point. No
He's like, "No."
clutter of context for these guys. No, sir. Goodbye. These jive turkeys. The LAPD suspect that the murderers are the work of a vigilante and ask the NYPD for guidance. NYPD Detective Frank Oka, well, that's the guy from the first movie, suspects it may be Paul again and is sent to assist with the case. Oka understands that Paul, when caught, will reveal that he was released without being charged for killing the 10 muggers in New York City. This was a stretch.
Yeah. They're
It
like,
would
oh,
have
it'll
been,
follow us right back here.
yeah.
No, it wouldn't have.
It would have been Paul Kersey, a lunatic, his word against the lead detective, the mayor, and a prosecutor. They're like, he'll bring us all down and you'll lose your pension. And Oka's like, I get that next year. I better go to LA and see what's going on. Oka enters. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Oka or Ocha? Oka?
I think they said Ocha.
Ocha. Enters Jerry's apartment. Jerry is Jill Ireland's character and Paul Kersey's love interest.
Yeah.
And up until now, she's been like, let's have dinner. Let's go to the movies. And Paul Kersey's like, I'm busy, baby. I'm cleaning the streets. So Ocha tells her about Paul's previous vigilante killing spree in New York. After Paul returns to his house, Jerry confronts him, but he denies everything. Like, what's he gonna say?
He did the really great, like, well, they asked me.
Yeah.
And she was like, did you? What? And you did it? And he was like, well, I just said they asked me.
Yeah. Would have been better.
I didn't say I did it.
Yep, I did it. I killed them all. Ocha follows Paul, who is tailing the 3 remaining gang members. He follows them to an abandoned park where an arms and drug deal is underway, and a sniper scouts Paul and attempts to kill him. Ocha warns Paul and fatally shoots the sniper. Ocha is mortally wounded by Nirvana, and Paul wounds Punk Cut, I'm not making this up, and kills Cutter and another dealer. The arms dealer tries to get away, but Paul shoots and causes his car to drive off a cliff and explode. I miss those cars rolling off a hill and just fucking exploding for no reason.
When I watched that explosion, I was like, the explosion's cool, but the car was not going fast enough to go flying off that cliff like that.
Nope, not at all.
Not even a little bit.
Plus he follows them, gets on the bus with them. Ocha tails him in the cab, and they use those little what are those little binoculars called you were talking about earlier that he uses?
Opera binoculars, because they're teeny tiny.
Yeah.
It's like, sir, he's following in the cab, and the cab driver's like, pay me. And he's like, I'm the police.
Yeah, I'm the police. Don't worry, buddy.
And the guy's like, no, I'm not a city worker. You pay
So he
me.
pays
And
him
also,
half.
when Ocha is spying on Paul, I noticed in one of the scenes, and I was like, well, this is ironic. Do you remember the Guardian Angels?
Yep.
Okay. There's a group of them walking through a scene.
Oh, are there?
Yeah. I was like, those are Guardian Angels. Like, they're wearing the little red berets, the
I
white
didn't notice
t-shirt.
them.
I was like, oh my God. I was like, how ironic. A group of people who's supposed to be making the neighborhood safer.
Yeah.
And he's just waiting to go out and start killing people's. By the way, I think they're still like
They are
operational.
still active. Yeah, they are. I remember seeing something not too long ago about them.
Interesting. But yeah, that was also one of the scenes. And I just think it's really funny that happens. And then Paul Kersey follows a bunch of drug dealers. And then Ocha follows him in a cab.
And then after Ocha shoots the sniper, the bad guys like unleash with handguns and shotguns and machine guns.
Yes.
And then there's Paul Kersey with the handgun, like pew pew.
And he gets his shots in.
Yeah. They unleash hundreds of bullets at a time, and he's like pew pew
Pew pew. Although I will say this for Ocha, I didn't want him to die. I didn't want him to get hurt.
No, I
And
still like the character.
He warns Paul Kersey about the sniper and that he's about to get spotted, and I was like, that was real nice of you.
Yeah.
I'm mad. I'm mad that he died. I wanted him to live through this and retire happily.
Yeah, get his pension.
Yeah.
How out of place was that middle-aged, overweight white pimp?
So out of place, and that
Did
was
not look like a gun smuggling pimp at all.
Also, wasn't he wearing like a super shiny shirt?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I was like,
look
"Is
like
that
your grandpa
satin?"
going on a Halloween party. Funny, yes. Scary, no.
Yeah, I was not worried for my safety with him around.
No. Nirvana escapes. Ocha tells Paul to avenge him and dies. Paul escapes, and Punk Cut dies from his injuries after giving information about Nirvana to the police.
Mm.
Yeah, because Kersey is like, "It's you. I'll be damned. You stuck your neck out for me," and he was like, "It's either them or you. So avenge me." I'd be like, "No, we hardly know. We hardly know each other." And I
We're not
kind of doing,
besties.
yeah, I'm doing this for my daughter. You know what? You're dying. Sure, I'll avenge you.
Sure, I'll be nice. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Paul learns that one of Jerry's colleagues that the police are preparing a tactical unit to capture Nirvana. He obtains a police scanner and, by monitoring police radio traffic, finds out when and where the arrest is going to take place. He drives to the location to kill Nirvana, who, under the influence of PCP, slashes his arm and stabs officers while trying to escape. He kicks the shit out of a bunch of officers.
He literally flips them over
Yeah.
him, over his shoulder. He's
Yeah.
like, boink, gone.
Tried and found criminally insane in record time, mind you, he is sent to a mental institution. Jerry is writing a story about the case and capital punishment and takes Paul to the hospital to meet the doctor treating Nirvana. While there, Paul steals another doctor's coat and identification card and uses it to enter the asylum and confront Nirvana. After repeatedly stabbing Paul with a shiv, Nirvana ends up plunging his arm into a high voltage panel. Paul turns on, fatally electrocuting him. I liked this scene.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the good old days, to become a doctor and sneak into a hospital or a mental asylum, just had to swipe a badge and buy some whiteout.
But also, true story, but also we skipped an incredibly important part here. The lunch at the Japanese restaurant with
Oh,
the
the
Dom
lunch at-
Perignon,
Yeah.
where Paul Kersey, in an over-the-top romantic overture, looks at
That's
Jerry
right.
and says, "Want to marry me?"
Yeah. Hey,
And she's
baby.
like, "Really? Really?" And he's
Yeah,
like,
they're
"Yeah."
gonna go down to Mexico.
They're gonna go to Acapulco.
Acapulco.
Immediately. They're just gonna run off and get married. And I literally wrote, "What the fuck kind of proposal is that?" Because she gets up off of her chair, goes over to the man doesn't even stand up.
No,
He
it's
doesn't
Charles
lean
Bronson.
over. He's sitting there and he's like, "Ooh," and she like hugs him and he's like, "Careful. This champagne costs like $200 a drop or $300. You just lost 900. You just spilled $900 of champagne,
Yeah,
3 drops." And I was like, "What the fuck?"
then he smacks her. He doesn't
No,
smack
he doesn't, but she's like, "This is wonderful." And I was like, "You said yes to that?" Also, the man's been ignoring you for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
You're like, the answer to that is let's get married.
Yep.
I was like, that's some bullshit. Anyway, so then after that, he goes to the hospital
Yeah.
and he faked his own like thing. And of course, while he was working on the ID, he crumpled up a mistake and tossed it towards his garbage can that had the 2 ducks on it. But missed it. So it was on the floor. Important. Eventually, he has the fight, electrocutes the guy. I don't know why you would take a patient into a room that has a scalpel sitting out unsecured. And
I
a
think he grabbed
mental.
that from his sock, tucked into his sock.
Oh, I missed that. That was probably because I was rolling my eyes.
Yeah.
The fight itself was good.
Yeah, I like how they didn't make it easy for it because it looked like
Yeah.
he was gonna lose.
Yeah, no, he
Yeah.
was, especially because the guy was Nirvana was Stabby McStabberson. Like he was just going at it. Like he was
Yeah, he
just
stabs him
swinging.
a lot.
And I was like, honestly, that makes more sense because nobody just like stabs and then like waits.
Yeah.
You keep going until the person you're stabbing stops. Not that I know from personal experience, I have never stabbed anyone to death, FYI. But I think that's a solid plan of attack. If you're going to stab someone to death, please don't stab anyone to death.
No.
That's me trying to avoid a lawsuit.
Yes, because by luck, Nirvana punches that electrical thing and then Kersey turns it on. At least it didn't have that 80s blue lightning that they use for electricity.
Thank God
I don't
for
think that
that.
wasn't invented yet. Yeah, thank God. Donald Kay, an orderly, recognizes Paul from the newspaper coverage of Carol's murder and gives him 3 minutes to escape before he rings the alarm. Didn't seem like 3 minutes, but I like
It wasn't.
no. But Jerry goes to Paul's house and finds out that he made a fake doctor's ID. Upon hearing news of Nirvana's death on the radio, she realized that Paul really is the vigilante that Ocha claimed him to be. She takes off her engagement ring and leaves Paul, who arrives home moments later. Months later, Paul attends a presentation of his building design for the radio station. The owner invites him to a launch party, but questions why Paul always seems to be unavailable in the evenings and never takes any phone calls. When Paul accepts the invitation, he answers, "What else would I be doing?" Paul returns to the streets at night and continues his killing spree. And that is our movie. Yay.
Woo.
And what is your score for Death Wish 2?
Okay. A tentative stream it. And here's why. I do think the violence against Rosaria and Carol is unnecessary in the method that they presented it to us. I think that's unnecessary. I understand something traumatic had to happen in order for Paul's vigilantism to be activated. I get that. I hate that rape is this film franchise's seemingly default choice of violence. I think they did Carol wrong in this movie, and I think it grated on me. The actual vigilantism, like that whole part of the movie, yes, there is a touch of ridiculousness to it. I like that in my action movies. I like when my action movies are a little bit ridiculous. And I like when, physics are kind of ignored. And I like when, science is not that serious. And I like that. But I'm sorry, Charles Bronson. I need a fucking facial expression. I need you to furrow your brows, squint your eyes, frown, something. Because he was just so stoic through the entire thing. I'm like, I'm not getting that you're traumatized. I'm not getting that this is like a PTSD reaction. All I'm getting is that you're like, cool. I'm out of milk. I should go kill some people. And that kind of takes away some of the joy. This sounds so weird. Some of the joy of the vigilantism. Like I want to cheer for you to kill the bad guys. And you're not giving me that joy. I don't want to cheer you on because I'm like, I think there's something seriously wrong with you, Mr. Kersey. What is this? So while the movie itself and the action itself and the vigilantism, like the actual action of it, is very entertaining, a little ridiculous, and just kind of silly. I enjoyed that part. The trauma that activates it, I did not enjoy. And Charles Bronson's face, I did not enjoy. So that's why I say a tentative stream it. However, if you are not okay with sexual violence and if it triggers you, you need to just ignore at least the first 2 Death Wish movies. I don't know about Death Wish 3, but definitely the first 2. And I can understand why this movie is considered kind of classic, but I can also understand why a lot of people wouldn't want to watch it. This was not I much prefer Death Wish, the first one. This one was okay. It wasn't my favorite. So tentative stream it. I would not pay money for this. What are your thoughts?
All right. Actually, we're kind of on the same. I wrote, but you kind of said everything that I kind of have here. I didn't hate this movie. It just appeared to be a rehash of a far superior movie, like in every sense. I just kept wondering, why was I watching part 2? I could be watching part 1. Pretty much everything that you just said. That the rape thing was a little much. It was used more than once. and I did like a lot of the killing stuff. It was silly, but it wasn't as good.
Yeah.
Um, it was I think it tried too hard to be the same yet different, and it failed. It just completely failed. I wouldn't say, yeah, I wouldn't pay money for this. I wouldn't say skip it. I stream it again, like you said. There is a warning if you're triggered by any of that stuff. Yeah, this one's much more than the first one.
Mhm.
I can't remember if there's any of that in the third. I don't think so. The third just goes off the rails with the killing and the
Mhm.
violence, and which is fun. I'm sure we'll watch, maybe next summer we'll watch part 3. Um, yeah, I say stream it. I stream it. I'm kind of conflicted. Like, I have to watch 3 and 4 again to see if I would ever do a Death Wish marathon. But I don't
Mhm.
even know. I could probably see myself being fine skipping this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It was okay.
It feels like it feels like Death Wish is the original, and this just feels like a photocopy of a copy. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, it's close enough,
yeah,
but it's not quite
that's
right.
yeah,
Like, there are a lot of little pieces in the beginning of the movie that make the second half of the movie kinda not as fun.
yeah, yeah,
And that's where I'm like, if I had gotten a rage reaction from Charles Bronson, or if they had done, maybe a different, trauma to activate his vigilantism, uh, like, I understand that, you know what? Beat Rosaria. Sure, like, I get that. Kill her. I get that.
yeah,
I don't think you need the sexual violence again,
yeah.
and I don't think you need to like, the daughter could have just not been there at all.
No,
She didn't need to be in this movie at all.
no.
And I think it would have been more than enough for this housekeeper that he loves, and maybe you throw in some dialogue about how she's like a daughter to him.
Yeah,
Her death would have been enough to spawn the rest of the movie.
yeah,
So it's a love-hate thing, because I think the action of the killing and the, like, hunting down these guys and these gang members is good, but it's not great.
yeah,
And it definitely doesn't feel great, because the first bit of the movie, you're kinda like, oh, again?"
yeah.
Also, Carol died real, like, not nice.
No, not at all.
I was like, "How
Not
you
at
gonna
all.
do her like that? Like, that is just gonna leave her on a fence?" So,
Uh,
yeah, it was I have a love-hate for this movie. Actually, no, let me rephrase. I have a meh-hate with this
yeah,
movie. Like, I'm like, "You didn't have to do that." The rest of it's okay, but it's not super great. But yeah, this is definitely my Tokyo Drift, where I just pretend it doesn't belong in the series at all.
yeah. Death Wish was, um, it explored both sides of the debate, and
Mhm.
but most of all, I had fun watching Death Wish. Like, it
God,
was,
yeah.
like, ludicrous and silly, but it was fun to watch. This was, it was okay, and
And
that's
with the first Death Wish, you saw Kersey's frustration. You
yeah.
saw his anger. You saw how he felt impotent and he couldn't do anything. You have none of that, because
No,
you
it's all
understand why he
missing.
becomes a vigilante. In this one, it was just like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'm just gonna start killing people."
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It was odd.
Yeah, so we have to stream it, almost reluctantly to stream it.
Yeah,
Not a
reluctant stream it,
complete skip it, but yeah, if you don't
but it's
watch it, you're
okay if
not
you skip
missing a
it.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right, trivia for Death Wish 2. Some of this is interesting.
I'm
All right.
ready.
So you can, okay. So before we start, there was some stuff that wasn't in the trivia, but I read in an article. Death Wish 3 was actually green lit before this movie finished filming, because this Death Wish 2, because Death Wish was so popular, Death Wish 2 signed a deal with HBO, and to for them to get the movie after it was done in the theaters, just to be on HBO for X amount of time.
Mhm.
And the amount that HBO paid for it covered the actual production of Death Wish 2. So this movie
Damn.
was broke even before it even hit the theater.
That's fantastic.
Also, Charles Bronson in the 70s started getting back end deals, percentage points.
Mm.
He also, I don't know if he's the first one, but he wanted in his contract percentage of rentals. And apparently they were like, okay, whatever. Sure. And then all of a sudden 80s hit and it was kaboom. Rentals started becoming huge.
Amazing.
So when he passed away, he was worth a good chunk of money.
I can believe that. Yeah. That was smart.
Yeah. All right, you may start.
According to Michael Winner's biography, Charles Bronson's alcoholic brother often visited the set to borrow money. Bronson was careful not to give him too much in case someone might kill him for it. He was later found dead in a cheap hotel room, having been stabbed in the buttocks.
It's a weird piece of trivia.
That is something you do not want to be famous for.
No, stabbed in the ass.
I know. God.
Producers Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus wanted Isaac Hayes to compose the music. Director Michael Winner refused and brought in Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page, who at the time was his next door neighbor.
Isaac Hayes would have been a million times better for this movie.
Yeah, would have been. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. The odd-numbered Death Wish movies take place in New York, where the even-numbered ones take place in Los Angeles. I had no idea.
The film was shot on location and depicted actual sleazy areas of the city. 20 off-duty men of the Los Angeles Police Department were hired to protect the film and cast and crew from potential hire. Not a couple, 20.
I mean, somebody's got to stand at the trucks. Somebody's got to, stand next to the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to stand next to. In an interview, Sylvana Gallardo, who played the housekeeper, said the rape scene was grueling and took about 6 days to film. To prepare for the role, she talked to an actual rape victim. She also said the scene was mostly improvised and that the actors who played the criminals raping her would immediately cover her up with a robe or blanket when Michael Winner yelled cut. I can appreciate that, but holy shit, 6 days.
6 days?
6 days to go through that I could never.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. They better pay for a bonus.
Yeah. It's cool that the actors, though, they were
courteous at least. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very vulnerable position for anybody to be in. So it was nice that they cared.
Director Michael Winner once said of this movie, from caveman days to today, there have always been violent times. You cannot say the Middle Ages weren't violent before television or films. So where do you put the blame then? Oil paintings and books? People were talking about that TV and movies were the cause of all this stuff. And no, we've been violent way before TV and video games.
It's so very true. It's just whether or not it celebrates the violence.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready. Various contemporary sources confirm that principal photography began May 4th, 1981 in Los Angeles, California. But an article reported that Michael Winner filmed various shots on the streets of downtown Los Angeles prior to the official start date. The schedule to film the 87-page script was expected to last 8 weeks, extending between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m. Bronson ignored the 8-hour day limitations in his contract, working 10 to 12 hours to help complete the movie in time. Winner exploded a Cadillac over the edge of a cliff in San Pedro, California on the final day of filming. I mean, that's a good way to end a filming schedule.
Charles Bronson was 61 years old when he appeared in this movie.
Nice.
You get all the big ones.
According to the screenwriter, David Engelbach, there was no rape scenes in his original draft. Neither the maid nor Carol were raped in his vision. In his original draft, Carol would have been pursued by the gang, have a flashback of her assault in the first film, and then leaps out a window to escape, only to fall to her death. Winner rewrote parts of the script to include the horrific scenes of violations, making Engelbach horrified and furious at the final result. Thank you, David Engelbach. You are a good man.
Actually, the author who wrote Death Wish and Death Sentence
Mhm.
hated the movie so much and said that Winter just did it to get his rocks off.
I'm
But
beginning
they
to be
have
a
a
little
very
concerned.
they do not like each other.
Mm.
Michael, oh, hold on one second here. I do apologize. Get off my screen, nerd. Oh, really?
Dun, dun,
Okay.
dun.
Where are you? There we go. Michael Winner gave the actors playing the thugs a lot of creativity leeway. They brought their own costumes, designed their own makeup, and tested them out on passersby to see how intimidating they'd look. Lawrence Fishburne bought a pair of magician gloves and waved his knife like a wand, while Kevin Major Howard waxed his eyebrows and shaved the front of his head to make himself look like a snake. He even developed mannerisms like his insane laugh, slapping his head and twirling a baton from seeing a live drummer in a punk band.
That's dedication. In West Germany, this movie set a record for the number of video cassette units sold. There, 10,000 tape sales of the home video were sold in 2 months, thereby producing royalties of over $500,000 in the first year on videotape. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
just in Germany, West Germany.
In West Germany, because at
I
this
don't think
point, there
East
were 2
Germany
Germanys.
East Germany didn't get a whole lot of movies back then.
No, they did not.
Charles Bronson insisted that if Jill Ireland was to be cast as the love interest, her character would not be brutalized or assaulted by any of the villains. His mandate was accepted by the producers. Well, one, he demanded that she be hired, and then two, demanded that, like, what are they going to say? No.
Yeah, right.
So she's going to tell Charles Bronson no.
Apparently not anybody on this crew. Several of the extras of the film were various locals who were either hired to play a bit part or happened to be passing by during a shooting. Among them were drug addicts, a drag queen, Hare Krishnas, and bikers, all included by Michael Winner in an attempt to get an authentic feel of the streets of Los Angeles. I mean, when I saw the Hare Krishnas, I kind of had a moment where I was like, oh, everybody gets to be in this movie.
Yeah. They just happened to be passing by. Michael Winner tried to keep the mood on the set lighthearted. Just because the film is terrifying, that doesn't mean the people making it have to be grim.
He took 6 days.
Yeah.
6 days to film a rape scene.
Yeah.
Way to keep it lighthearted.
Yep.
It's the first ever sequel for Charles Bronson. Wow.
Yeah. I just keep
So
that
weird.
the one where the terrifying. I just as the bad scenes are going on and behind the director's a clown.
Like, how do you keep that lighthearted?
Lighthearted.
Like, for 6 days, how do you like what? Do you make everybody balloon animals? Like, I don't understand.
That little oh, this is Oh, this is me, right?
Yes.
Charles Bronson worked with wife Jill Ireland 16 times in film productions, but of the 5 Death Wish movies, this was the only one they made together. 16.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
That's a lot of insisting your wife gets hired. Stanley Kubrick cast Kevin Major Howard in Full Metal Jacket 1987 after seeing him in this film.
He was the blonde one that dies with the rats. And he's in Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
Which Adam Baldwin from DC Cab was in Full Metal. There's our connection.
There you go. There's a connection.
This is one of the few films that Roger Ebert gave 0 stars to, a rating that he famously reserved for films he found artistically inept and morally repugnant. Ebert especially disliked Death Wish 2 for being just a series of dumb killings, underwritten and desperately underplotted, so that its witless action scenes alternate with lobotomized dialogue passages. Jeez, that's just harsh.
Wow, he really hated it.
I wasn't fond of it either, really, but
valid.
He hated it.
Everything he said is true.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. See, I think the next Death Wish movies are just go over the top of just silly violence, and
I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page was given a deadline of a few weeks to write and record the soundtrack at his personal studio, The Soul, and to travel on location to Los Angeles with Michael Winner for songwriting themes. That feels like a very short time.
Yeah. The film has since earned further money at home and abroad through releases for the video market. A poll for HBO noted it to be higher in demand by paying viewers than Chariots of Fire.
Really?
Yeah, so yeah, this movie made a shitload of money.
Mind you, I haven't seen Chariots of Fire in like 30 years.
Yeah, I've not seen that movie for a long time. Yeah.
We should totally do a classics, like a film classics rewatch.
Yeah.
This movie was made with a director's production strike looming. Shooting was completed about 2 weeks before it occurred.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Michael Winner said the film was the same but different to the original. That's what sequels are. Rocky 2, Rocky 3. You don't see Sylvester Stallone move to the Congo and become a nurse. Here, the look of Los Angeles is what's different. Besides, rape doesn't date. What does that mean?
Rape doesn't, it's not dated.
It's not dated. Yeah.
It's always happening. So
Yeah.
yes, we should put it in more film
Yeah.
and be explicit about it.
It's different when you're a fucking boxer. Of course you're gonna. Well, yeah, he's a vigilante. Of course he's gonna go around shooting people.
Recognizing their contribution to the film.
No,
what?
this is
Oh.
No, this is that.
No.
That was it. That was the last one.
That was the last one. Okay.
That was the last one. Yep.
Wow.
All right. Wow. Okay. So that was Death Wish 2. We have two reluctant stream-its.
Yeah. Death Wish
Not-
2, you disappointed us.
Yeah, it wasn't that great of a movie. Nowhere near Death Wish 1. Death Wish 1 was fun.
Death Wish 1 made sense.
And it made sense.
It made sense. Like, you felt his frustration and his anger and his, like, the love that he felt for his daughter and his wife who were, like, brutalized. You're like, yes, this man is on a mission. This one, it was like he was just waiting for someone to say, go.
Yeah. And he let people go in this movie. And in Death
Yeah.
Wish 1, he just killed everybody.
He's like,
Didn't
oh, you're
matter.
committing a crime?
Yeah.
Cool. Gonna kill you.
Because does he ever get everybody from the very beginning? I don't think he does.
He does. He
He
gets
gets
everybody.
all of them? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Nirvana was the last one.
Oh, no, I meant Death Wish 1.
Oh, Death
he-
Wish 1? I don't know if he kills everybody. I
Yeah, I
think
don't
he
think-
does. I think he does, but in between, he
Yeah,
kills
he's just
muggers
going
and
out,
whatever. He's
yeah.
just anybody who's committing a crime in between him getting to the people that he actually is targeting.
Yeah. The look, it looked better. It sounded better. The
Yeah.
characters were better. The acting was better. Yeah, everything was just better. It's too bad. You don't expect it to be just as good, but this was
No.
a definite drop off.
I knew it was going to be along the same lines, and I knew it was going to be very similar. That's cool. And I will always say this: The Fast and the Furious is essentially the exact same movie with like small details changed.
Yeah.
We know what's going to happen in every movie. Nothing is a fucking surprise. Death Wish, I was expecting the same thing. I'm like, yes, something terrible happens to someone that he cares for. It activates the vigilante. He goes out and he kills people. They come close to catching him. He has to like stop or disappear. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm down for all of that. This movie, I was like, it feels like a cheap copy.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, next week we are watching Stand By Me and Do the Right Thing. Our second to last drive-in for the summer.
Oh, it's coming to an end.
It's coming to an end. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for these two movies.
We're sorry we made you watch at
Yeah.
least one of them. The other one, no, actually, I'm sorry we made you watch both of these.
Yeah.
Jimmy's not sorry for DC Cap.
No, I'm not sorry for DC Cap. Yeah. I strangely liked it. All right. Well, again, thanks again. And until the next movie we remember liking.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.